Very good morning to all, and this is Sonia in front of you. Very warm welcome everyone on our channel Exam Rise English Medium. I hope my voice is completely audible everyone and everything is visible right now.
Psychology of
on our channel Exam Rise. Okay, from my side everyone, everything is fine. I hope my voice is completely audible and everything is visible now. So today's session is completely based on the marathon session again, and we are just going to discuss the important questions that sometimes asked in your mains examinations. And in this session we will try to make the perspective of the question, specifically for the question that how we can deal with the question, how we can make a good approach of the question, how we can choose the introductory part, how can we choose the mid body, and one more important thing, how can we how can we use our conclusion as per the perspective of the intro and mid body, right? Okay, so let's begin the session everyone. Before going to start the session, numbers of the students yesterday asking me regarding the subject and the optional subjects in the mains, specifically the students who are belonging from different subjects, like some of the students are belonging from I think engineering background, some of the students belonging from arts background. So I feel it is very important to discuss the things. And in this session, first of all, I would like to discuss about the mains writing practice. No doubt, yesterday I already discussed all these slides, that how to do the mains writing, how to practice specifically the answer writing for the mains writing, and how we can continue the things further, how we can improve ourselves, and how can we make our excellence while doing the answer writing, how we can choose the key points of the question, how can we understand the question as well. Sometimes the question will ask on the examination analytical approach, and sometimes the question will directly ask on the analytical or critical analysis. For being a part of administrator to going will become the part of the administrative system, it is very important to understand, it is very important to analysis everything, right? That the way you are choosing the question, the way you are answering the question, because whenever you start to doing the answer writing, sometimes answer writing showing your personality, your depth analysis, your knowledge grasping, that how much you have specifically for the subject. Fine. So let's begin this session everyone. Now, how to practice the answer writing for the mains. In this session yesterday I already mentioned that you have to must analysis about the syllabus. That syllabus is a very crucial or initial part of any of the paper, any of the subject. Either you are very much interested in history, either you are very much interested in geography, political science and science tech. So answer writing and the specific, it means that you have to be specific with the syllabus, right? कि syllabus आपसे क्या कहना चाहता है. Whenever you be very much specific about the syllabus, definitely you have to work, or you have to work accordingly, and you have to somehow making your approach as per the need of the syllabus. Fine. For example, if I'm taking the example of a history, in the prelim session, they are completely asking about in one line syllabus, they are just asking about the history and the national movement. It doesn't mean that you are covering the whole section of the history, the ancient, medieval and the modern, and you have to be showing your excellence in each and every part, that you are very much good in modern section, you are very much good in ancient section. Maybe some of the sections completely weaker from your side. So it is very important to everyone to understand the questions, the approach of the questions, the importance of the question. It is only comes out when you will start to studying the previous year papers, because I always told you that numbers of the time I already mentioned you that previous year paper somehow mentioning the transparency of the question, that how the question is framing specifically for the paper. And one more important thing, what is the behavior of the question, because in the answer writing session specifically for the mains, because in the prelims section you have a 4 options, you can judge also, you can make the guesses also कि भाई A नहीं तो B हो सकता है, B नहीं तो C हो सकता है, या दोनों हो सकते हैं. But no doubt, there is a no doubt that definitely we can say from the last to last year UPSC completely make the prelims paper somehow toughest part for us, because either the question is basically come on the objective part, either the question is completely come on the subjective part. It is both the papers, the prelims as well as the mains, they are completely asking about your depth analysis of the syllabus, your the complete knowledge about the subject, the depth, and we can say the depth knowledge of the subjects. Fine. The next thing I would like to mention here, that how to answer writing for the beginners. As I told you yesterday, so I will not take so much time on the same slides again and again. I would like to mention the things. Hello Aman, very good morning. I would like to mention the slides in a very quick manner without wasting your time. So how to answer writing for the beginners for understanding the keywords and the good approach. What do you mean by the understanding of the keywords? Right, understanding of the keywords. For example, the understanding of the keywords, maybe the question will completely ask about the nationalism. Right, understanding the keywords, right? So, and you have to develop a very good approach. There is a difference between both the terminologies. First of all, when you are asking about the, whenever you are asking about the understanding of the keywords, and whenever you are asking about the good approach. So how you can understand the keywords? When completely you have to develop a very good understanding first of all with the question as well, right? And for example, the question and the understanding of the keys is completely based on the nationalism. That what do you mean by the nationalism, and how nationalism is completely impacted the 21st century, right? For example, nationalism, why nationalism is important in the history, we have a difference of the events. We have a 1757, the Battle of Plassey, we have a 1764 Battle of Buxar as well. We have a 1761, the third Battle of Panipat, then we have a 1857, the first War of Independence. It doesn't mean that the Plassey, the Buxar and the third Battle of Panipat and the first War of Independence never ever showing the feeling of a nationalism, right? But specifically, because we have a very limited words while doing the answer writings, we have a more over 50 or somehow we have a 250 words are there. So it is a very important to understand, it is a very important to consolidate the knowledge, that you have a very good analysis of 1757, you have a very good knowledge of 1857, and you have a very good knowledge in that same time period. We can see the gapping of the 100 years, that moreover the centuries are completely crossing out. So you have a very good chronological knowledge of the same moreover 100 years of the time phases, कि भाई 1757 के बाद क्या हुआ, उसके बाद क्या हुआ, और किस तरीके से चीजें नेशनलिज्म को somehow impact करती हैं, right? And how you can develop the good approach when you started to correlating the things. Yesterday's session I already mentioned you people regarding I feel so about the good approach of the answer writing, how the interdisciplinary approach is completely working as well. So it is a very important that you cannot differ everything. We are not going to connect the social issues with the political issues, we cannot connect the political issues with the economic issues. It is a very important to understand, and it is a very important to develop the quality, we can say the quality, that how we can correlate everything, because while doing the answer writing only you can develop the good approach, only you can develop the good approach when you start to correlating everything, with each other, right? So it is very important to understand the things. Fine, so let's move ahead everyone. Now when, who, what, how and why, where. For example, already I am giving you the example, the keywords. The keywords I'm giving you, the nationalism. We in historical era or in the events of the history, we have a numbers of the events. As I already told you. right? As earlier I told you about the nationalism in 1757, in 1857, we have a 1764. Before that, we have a 1761, the third battle of Plassey, right? Now, the key word is a nationalism. So, definitely you have to define the things according to yourself. Sometimes you have to understand the complete era of 1757 as per the perspective of the nationalism. That what is the key role of a nationalism in 1757, right? And you have to be analysis the complete role of the Robert Clive from the side of the Britishers, and you have to play the complete role as per the perspective of the nationalism by the Sirajuddaula and in the phase of the 1757 from the Bengal's Nawab, right? This is the first phase of the nationalism. It doesn't mean that Sirajuddaula somehow started to finding out the benefits with the Britishers. It is somehow the we can say the conflict between the Robert Clive and with the Sirajuddaula, because Sirajuddaula is was not somewhere is giving the whole authority to the Britishers, right? As per the trading perspective, as per the economic perspective, as per the beneficial perspective, it is not possible that you have to call someone for the trading perspective and someone is completely capturing your own land and said this is mine land as well, right? Now 1857, this is somehow is considering and the first war of independence, and 1764, the battle of Buxar, somehow completely giving the whole authority to the Britishers, not only consolidating the economic power but as well as consolidating the trade, the market, the commercialization of the India, and somehow Britishers were completely successful to make the India as the best colonial power from where they can get more over of the benefits. Now 1761, I already giving the example of a third battle of Panipat, when Maratha and Ahmed Shah Abdali somehow they are completely conflicted with each other, but somehow after the declining of the Marathas, Britishers are somehow getting the another chance to make India not only the colonial power, but they are completely feel themselves free to exploit India as well. Not only the perspective for the economic perspective, but as well as the political, the administrative, the cultural, as well as the religious perspective. Fine. So we have a different segments. I hope my internet is working, everyone. Okay, now let's move ahead, everyone. So in this session, it is very important to understand the key points of everything that you have to mention in the answer writing. While doing the answer writing, you have to choose a very good approach. So you have to mention about the keywords about nationalism, 1757, 1857, 1764 and 1761 as well. That you have to mention how the nationalism is working actually, what is nationalism is work, and where is the nationalism completely prominent, showing the importance, or we can say the relevance. Now why nationalism is happening in 1757, and how nationalism completely, and when nationalism is completely capturing not only 1757 as well as 1857, and it is completely changed the whole perspective of the history, and it is not completely changed history drastically, but somehow it is completely changed the perspective of the historians, that they started to sometimes filling, or say, we can say sometimes they completely change their perspective, and they somehow representing the different theory to understand the theories in a very different manner. Fine. So let's move ahead, everyone. Hello Ajit, Jai Hind. Now, what is interdisciplinary approach and how it is working actually, right? interdisciplinary approach, and I'm already showing you the scope of the history, and somehow I'm already discussing you the your broadness, right? Broadness means the way you are looking the history, the way you are choosing the history, and somehow the way you are choosing the history and how you can correlate everything with each other. It is somehow the way you are using the techniques, the disciplines of the history, and the research historians, the researchers and the historians, and how the historians change their perspective while using the broad concepts, right? So in the broad concepts we have a intradisciplinary studies, right? We have a social history. Even any of the question will come in the answer writing. Either the question is belong from a social issues in the history, in the geography, in the political science. It is a very important to understand everyone. First of all, you have to analysis what the question is asking to you people, number one. Number two, it is very important to understand the keywords of the question, and number three, it is very important to everyone that you have to mention all the points. But while mentioning all the points, it is very important to check the question. If the question is completely asking about the factual base, there is no need to mention everything. It is completely up to you. It is completely it is your choice, the way you are choosing the things. Would you like to mention the social history, economic history, or the political history, or the cultural history? But on the another way, being a teacher, I just want to suggest everyone, and I would like to mention everyone, that you have to mention about each and every aspects of the history, because without missing any of the elements in the same slide, while writing the answer, while doing the answer writing, if you're mentioning any of the questions, if you're mentioning or if you're missing any of the points which is mentioning on the slides, everyone, I hope the question is not giving you the good understanding or not presenting the right direction. Because social history not only presenting the perspective of the society, economic history somehow is showing you that how the people is completely dependent on the economy, and how somehow economy is giving the chance to earning the basic we can say the basic needs of the people. And when we are talking about the religious perspective, in the historical perspective, we can say religion is somehow playing a very crucial and very initial role to understanding any of the events. Now the cultural and the administrative or the political history, the three of the elements are completely important, because we the people who are belonging from any of the society, we are completely dependent on the social, economic, and the cultural and religious history. To maintaining all these elements, to maintaining the social, the economic, the cultural, and the religious perspective, we are completely needy of a system. How the system is working completely, when we have a good administrative, when we have a very good political system, that it is somehow not only supporting, not only guiding, but somehow they are guiding to the people that how you will manage everything, that how you will systemization, put it everything in the very good systemization, right? Current affairs and history relation, it is also very important task. In yesterday's session, I already giving the example of a Nupur Sharma, and how you can correlate if the question is completely asked on the communalism, democracy, the social issues. So definitely you can mention, you can correlate the things with current affairs as well. We have a Russia-Ukraine war, so definitely you can, if you are mentioning the question on IR, so you can correlate the things as well. In these days, we are just celebrating 75 years of the independence, Amrit Mahotsav. So definitely this is a somehow a very, we can say, important days in the history, and how nationalism is working actually, and how the slogans and the propaganda like Har Ghar Tiranga is working. So it is a very important to correlate everything. Har Ghar Tiranga doesn't mean this is the part of this is the part of the Indian government. Definitely this is the part of any of the social, economic, or cultural, or we can say the religious perspective, whenever you explaining or whenever you discussing about nationalism. Why important is a PYQ? Because PYQ somehow is giving the complete explanation about that, and somehow it is showing the transparency of anything, the way you are understanding the question, and the way you are understanding what is the question is behaving actually, right, in front of you or in front of the students. Question each day to get your into the answer writing. Numbers of the students yesterday asking me about the good answer writing, that how we can managing the good answer writing. So I would just like to mention, The question is every day you have to practicing for the question. You have to use the required value addition. Maybe the value additions will be based on your facts, maybe it is based on your explanation, maybe it will be based on your current affairs sessions, right? And every day you have to write down each at least each day you have to write down a question, and sometimes it is help to improve your confidence. And a question each day to get you into the merit list. Definitely it is not only showing you it is not only improving your confidence, but somehow when your knowledge is going to be enhanced, definitely you will be feel more confident, right? I already mentioned all these slides, so I'm not going to detail in it. Right now, write down the points. It is very important that you have to make the things in the points. Intro, main body and conclusion is very important. Diagrams, flow charts were required as well. Maximum numbers of the question. Read and understanding the questions carefully, and do not give the extreme views. Use definitely, maybe sometimes the question is completely not up to the mark as per your need, but it doesn't mean that you are going to be represent your opinions in a very extreme way. It is completely controlled by you. You are not going to show your biasness with the question as well. And use the facts and figures to substantiate points. It is very important to mentioning the facts and figures. Might be you can mention the figures, might be you can mention the maps as well, right? And handwriting should be readable only. Doesn't mean that you are going to write down everything line by line. It is completely up to you, but it doesn't mean that you are just going to house-boss the paper. It is completely up to you the way you are writing. Definitely the handwriting is completely readable to the examiner. Now, Industrial Revolution I already done, everyone, so I'm not going to in detail. Those students are not watching the earlier session or specifically for the yesterday session, they can watch the session as well. In today's session, yesterday in the last time, I think when the time was about to over, I already discussing about the Plassey 1757 and the Battle of Buxar as well 1764. Right, so in this session, I would like to mention from the tribal area, separate of Buddhism, I already mentioning the eightfold paths, I already mentioning everyone, rightfold paths. Peasant movement, I already mentioning the paradigm shifts. Yesterday I'm discussing with you that how the paradigm shift is completely working from 19th to 20th century, everyone. Now, immediate impact, I already discussed with you important peasantry movements and the nature, and we can say the emergence of the classes, consequences, organizations, right? Leaderships, I already mentioned. Fine. So today's session is completely based on the Battle of Plassey. I already mentioning you, everyone. Okay. Now in this session I'm going to mention about the tribal revolts, right? I hope my screen is completely visible to everyone. So, tribal revolts in India during British period. Tribal revolts, basically tribal revolts, the topic is completely belonging from the nationalism. In this session, we are just going to discuss about the relationship between the tribal people and the relationship between the British crowns, or we can say the British governor generals. Fine. And yesterday's session, I already mentioning about the peasant movement, that how the peasant movement is completely impacted. And in this session, I'm completely discussing the tribal revolts in Indian during the British period, right? Now, tribal uprising were basically, you can see on the screen, everyone. So in this session, what we are going to discuss actually. In this session, we are just going to discuss about the tribal revolts. Now, number 2, we are going to discuss about the uprising. Number 3, we are going to discuss about the impact, right? And uprising, or we can say the suppression. We can say the suppression by whom? The Britishers. Right? And impact on whom? On economy, specifically for the economy, society, religion, right? Or the somehow their suppression of the Britishers by making the policies, by making the policies, right? So this is about the question, everyone. In this question, we are discussing about some of the few points. Okay, Ajit. Tribal revolts is basically how the tribal revolts is completely flourished. Uprising means how the suppression. Uprising means the arising, first of all, how the tribal movements, or we can say the revolts, is uprising. Then we are discussing about the suppression, how the suppression is working actually by the Britishers. And the impact, we are discussing about the impact by whom? By economy, by society, by religion. Economy, when the basic needs of the tribal people completely snatched by the Britishers. Society, when you completely not giving, when you are completely not providing the equality to the tribal areas. Religion, when you are not completely, when the missionary class introduced by the British people, when they started to forcing the tribal people to conversion of the religion, and when they are not providing the equal opportunity or the equal religious status to the tribal people, right? Because maximum of the tribals people are living in the forest area, and the economic benefits completely, I feel so, economic benefits, they are looking for the economic benefits by the Britishers. And tribal uprising were basically against the colonial administrations, right? Tribal uprising is basically against the colonial administration. Why it is happening actually? Tribal administration means when we are talking about the policies, by the policies. What are the policies? When you are not completely providing the equal opportunity to the tribal people, right? And destroy their originality and their traditional thread of the protected social and economic life. As I told you that how the social and how the economic life of the tribal people completely impacted just because of the Britishers policies, right? Fine. So let's move ahead on the next slide. Everyone, we can say numbers of the movements we have, kind of the movements, the examples as well. In this slide, we have a numerous of the tribal movements, the Santhala movements we have. Santhala movements, if I'm talking about the Santhala tribals or Santhala movements, this is completely in the news in these days, because I think everyone is aware about the 2022, the new president, right? Madam Draupadi Murmu, she is belonging from the Santhala tribal as well. So Santhala tribal is completely earlier become the part of a current news as well. So I feel that everyone have a very good knowledge, and everyone have a very good facts and figures about Santhala revolts and Santhala tribal classes as well, right? Kind of movements due to exploitation by outsiders, right? Outsiders, and the outsiders, according to the tribal area, who are the outsiders? The British people are the outsiders. And the outsiders, specifically for the British people, they were not completely authorized to get out the tribal people, or the people who are belonging from the forest area, or the people who are living already the outskirts of the areas. Britishers, who are considered as outsiders by the tribal people, they are no one to authorize to get out all the tribal people from their own lands and from their own place. Fine. Now the Santhala and the Mundas, we can say, you can see on the screen as well examples. We have a very good examples. Movement due to economic deprivation. Economic deprivation means what? When you started to get out all the tribal people from their own land, from their own forest area. So what about the economic benefits? What about the economic basic needs of the tribal areas? Because yesterday I told you, I already giving the example about the peasantry class. The peasantry class is completely based on the agriculture, right? On the same way, if the peasantry class cannot survive without agriculture, because somehow agriculture is not providing the basic needs of the fulfillment, as well as we can say agriculture somehow giving or somehow a permanent source of the earning for the peasantry class. On the same way, if I'm talking about the tribal class or the tribal people are also somehow a very important, or we can say the forest area, the outskirts area for the tribal people, somehow a very permanent source of earning, the permanent source of the survival, right? The Gondas in Madhya Pradesh and the Mahars in the Andhra Pradesh, they are somehow very prominent people, specifically belong from the tribal area. Movements due to separatist tendencies. It is mean that when we started to divide the tribal areas, when we started to rule on their own policies by the Britishers, the Nagas and the Mizos, they are again a very important playing a very important part in the tribal movement, and they also playing a very important role in the nationalism. Now, movement seeking political autonomy and formation of the state. Movement seeking political autonomy and the formation of the state, the Nagas, the Mizos and the Jharkhands. Agrarian movements completely belong from the Santhala movement. Agrarian movements, why it is happen actually when the Britishers completely arising, or we can say enhancing the revenue and the taxation on the land, and forest based movements, Muria and Maria movements, and social religious or the social cultural movements, right? When you are not giving the equal rights, the Bhagat movement among Bhils of Rajasthan, and the Madhya Pradesh movement among us tribals of the South Gujarat, or Raghunath Murmur's movement among us the Santhala tribals. Fine. So I think the word Santhala, the tribal, the Murmurs, they are completely a very common words in these days from the last July 18, when the president election completely happened earlier, and we know everything about Santhala tribal. In the previous session, I completely already explained you everything about the Santhala tribals, the geographical features of the Santhala tribals, what is the history of the Santhala tribals. So those students are not watching the session completely, go and just watch the session, everyone. Shalu Yadav, very good morning. Shalu Yadav, today's topic is completely based on the tribal movement, right? The tribal movement, the history, the impact, the uprising, the impact in the social, political, economic and the cultural, and how they are completely why the tribal movement and why the tribal people are not completely accepted the exploitation of the Britishers. Fine, Shalu, I hope this is completely clear to everyone, and don't forget to like the session, everyone, as well. Is the question is clear to you, Shalu? शालू, क्वेश्चन क्लियर है अभी? So interdisciplinary approach, when we're talking about the interlinked. Interlinked means the connectivity we are showing. To whom we are showing the connectivity? When we're talking about the tribal, tribal's impact. So what we are going to mentioning about in the interdisciplinary approach? We are going to mentioning about the social, the economic, the political, the administrative, and We have a cultural and we have a religious. We have a cultural and we have a religious impacts. Right? Now, interdisciplinary studies that I am already told you, this is showing the connectivity. This is showing the connectivity. Right? Tribal and their impact. Right, so this is the approach to write down the question one by one. You have to mention each and every dimension which I mentioned on the board, everyone. Tribals, social. What is the social history of the tribal? When the British Crown, when the British Governor Generals not providing the equal rights, right? Equal rights. Number one. Number two, when you started to divide and rule the tribal people. When you started to divide and rule the tribal people, right? Next, we can move ahead now. What is the economic history? What is the economic history? When the British Crown completely snatched the basic needs. What are the basic needs? The agriculture and the forest areas and the, just a minute, and the forest areas by the tribals people, right? Next, we can move ahead. What about the religious history? When the British Crown or the Governor General of the Britishers completely introduced the missionaries class. The missionaries class. The next, we can move ahead with the cultural history. When the Britishers are not completely providing, when this completely separatist the different tribal areas, when we have a very good example of a Jharkhand, we have a very good example of the Andhra Pradesh, we have a very good example of the, we can say the Nagas tribes, right? Administrative and political authorities. When we're talking about the administrative history and the political history, we can say directly that none of the system is completely in the hand of the British, in the hand of the tribal people. The complete system is completely handed over, or we can say in the hand of the British people. So it is completely up to the British people or the British Crown that how they can form the policy, or it doesn't mean, and surely we can say that British policies and their administrative or political formations of the policies were never ever favoring the tribal people. Fine. So what is happening at the last? The tribal people completely suffered with whom? The social, the economic, the political, we can say the administrative and the cultural histories, where is complete, their sufferers are completely come out in the form of the revolts, or their sufferings come out in the form of the movements as well, right everyone? Now, you can see on the map everyone, I hope the map is completely visible to everyone, and where I am mentioning about the history lessons, the characterization of the tribal uprising, and you can see the question as well. Shalu Yadav earlier asking about the question. So Shalu, you can see the question as well on the screen. There were some common characteristics on the tribal uprising, even though they were separated from one another in the time and space. So you can understand the question first of all, everyone. What is the question is asking? I already mentioning about the question earlier on the slides. Some common characteristics of the tribal uprising. That why is the tribal uprising happening? That we have some common characteristics. What are the common characteristics? When we are looking for our agriculture, just a minute. When we are looking for our agriculture, on less taxation. Less taxation. Number two, we are looking for what? Their own land. Their own land. On land means what? The agricultural land. Their owner and number 2 the forest land. Right? Why they are looking for it? Because this is the permanent source. This is the permanent source, we can say. They are getting from their own the lands and the forest lands, right? Even they were separated one another in the time and space. How the time and space is working actually, that how they are separated actually, when we are taking the example of a Jharkhand, Andhra Pradesh, and the rest of the part of a Mizos and the Nagas, right? So you can see numbers of the tribal, the study shown on the caste grew out the tribes, right? Lothis, Shrivastava, Vaishyas. We have a numbers of the examples, everyone. Santhala, you can see on the screen as well. Khatra, Meghalaya, Thanu, Bhil, Siddhi, Halka, right? We have a numbers of the tribal names on the map as well. And I would like to say how the space and time is working actually. How the space and time is working actually. We have a numbers of the tribal areas, the Nagas, the Mizo and Mizos in the Jharkhand as well, right? Marias movements, we have a numbers of the movements and we have a numbers of the names on the tribal area. But what is the interesting factor in time and space? That all the movements were not happening equally, right? All the movements were not happening equally. And what about the space? When the Britishers completely get the chance to separate all the tribal movements. So you can see on the screen, everyone, when we earlier we were discussing about the separatist. Okay, just a minute. Okay, tendencies, we can say autonomy, formation of the state, forest based movement, and the social cultural movement. And we have a very good example of the separatist, how they can separate with each other. The different we can say the we have a different countries when we have a movements due to separatist tendencies, the Nagas and the Mizos, right? When they started to using the rule of when they are using the tendency by the Britishers to using divide and rule to the people with each other. Right, let's move ahead, everyone. Now on the screen, approach. What the approach we are using here? Start with the writing with the expansion of the tribal uprising, causes of such uprising under British rule. Right, we are using why they are uprising under the British rule. Number 2, we are discussing about the common characteristics of the tribal uprising. The common characteristics, which is I already mentioning you about the agriculture and the forest land. Number 3, conclude by writing the significances. We can say the significances, we can say, of these uprising in the Indian freedom struggle. Significances, which means we are discussing about the importance, right? We are discussing about the factors. We are discussing about the objectives, and we are discussing about the aims, right? And introduction, tribal movement under the British rule were the most frequent, militant and violent to all the movement. If I'm comparing the peasant movement and if I'm comparing the tribal movements, definitely the tribal movement under the British rule were the most frequent, militant and violent to all the movements. And the tribal movements can be categorized into the mainland tribal revolts. Earlier when we discussing about what? The space and the time. And into the maintained tribal revolts and frontier tribal revolts, concentrated many in the northeastern part of the India. And northeastern part of the Indias, we have a very good example of a Nagas, we have a very good example of the Mizos. We have a very good examples of the Nagas, the Mizos, right? We have a very good different examples of the Murmurs. We can say Santhala as well. Fine. Good morning, Mr. Sudhir Yadav. Right, so we have a different examples. Now, body. What is the mid-body approach of the answer writing? Uprising sparked by number of the factors. In this slide, we are going to discuss about the time and the space factors, how the time and the space factor is completely working. Or in this slide, we are going to discuss about the significance, the importance, the factors, and one more important prominent thing we are discussing here about the reasons behind it. Right? No doubt that Britishers are somehow using a very common tendency in the Indian people, even the tribal people, even in the peasantry class, even in the common people, they are sometimes definitely using the tendency to divide and rule the people. But definitely that I always told you that nothing is completely burst out sudden in the very sudden way. Everything is come out with a sudden everything is come out with a gradual process. So in this slide we are going to discuss about the significances and the gradual process of the factors behind uprising of the tribal movements and uprising, as well as we are going to discuss about the factors, the aims, the objectives of the tribal uprising. So mainland tribal revolts is what? The land settlements of the British affected, just a minute. The land settlements of the British affected. The land settlements means when we are discussing about the agriculture. When we are discussing about the land settlements means when we are discussing about the agriculture. Right? British affected the joint ownership. Joint ownership whom? Joint ownership when we are discussing about the tribal people. When we are discussing about the tribal people, plus the zamindari class and the British Crown. Right? Tradition among the tribes and that disrupted their social fabric. Social fabric means what? When the British Crown is completely snatched the equality of the tribal people. When they started to differentiate, when they started to using the tendency to divide and the rule to the tribal people as per the social fabrics. Fine. Now, as agriculture was extended in the settled form of by the government, we are talking about the East India Company, right? And the tribal lost their lands and there was an influx non-tribals to these areas. This is completely non-accepted by the tribal people. What is happening actually? When you completely arising the land revenue taxation, right? When you completely arising the land revenue taxation. So what is happening at the last? When the tribal people, when they were completely suffering with irrigation facilities, there were not any type of facilities provided by the British Crown or British Governor Generals. They already don't have any fertile land. So what is happening at the last, when the British Crown people completely arising the taxation on the lands, they were not affordable. They were not completely able to fulfill the demands of the British ruling classes. And ultimately what is happening, when they completely transferred the land of the tribal people to the non-tribal people, so this is not completely accepted by the tribal people. Finally, fine. Then shift cultivation in the forest was curbed. In this added to the tribals problem. Shifting cultivation means when the Britishers were completely looking for their own commercial purposes. Shifting cultivation, we are completely looking for their own commercial purposes. The tea, we can say the cotton as well. Now, exploitation by the police, the traders and the moneylenders. Exploitation by the police, it is completely favoring the British Crown. Traders, when they are completely looking for their own benefits. Moneylenders, when they are completely arising the debt percentage of the tribal people, and most of them outsiders, and aggravated the tribal sufferings. These are somehow become consolidated the exaggeration of the problems for the tribal people when they were not completely liable to fulfill the high taxation of the Britishers. So completely what is happening at the last, the tribal lands are completely transferred or shifted to the non-tribals people. Those were already living outsides of the, we can say, the outskirts or the tribal areas. Christian missionaries came to these regions and their efforts interfered with the traditional customs of the tribal. When we have a very good examples of the conversion of the tribal people, those were not completely authoritative or not liable to fulfill the high land taxation which is imposed by the British people. Fine. So what is happening? They are completely suffering the non-equality problems of the religion. Fine. And Chur uprising, coal mutiny, the Santhala Rebellion, the Bhil revolts, when we already discussing about the northeast or northwest areas where the people are completely looking for their own rights, and when the rights were not completely fulfilled as per the need or up to the mark for the Britishers, so definitely they are looking for the uprising of the different revolts. We have a very good example of a coal mutiny when they started to living with each other, and they started to when they started to make the weapons against the British crown or the British governor generals, right? Santhala rebellions we have, and Bhil revolts I already mentioned earlier in the slides. Fine. Now, frontier tribal in northeastern parts of the India, their revolts were often in the favor of the political autonomy within the Indian Union of the complete independence. When they are looking, or when they started to demanding for the complete independence, these movements were not forest based or agrarian revolts, so as these tribals were generally in the control of land on the forest area. Control of lands, control by whom? The British people. And the land and the forest, when the uprising, or we can say the arising of the taxation, uprising day-to-day life, and the movement, desanskritization movements also separate among the frontier tribals. When you are not completely looking the tribal people with equal eyes, and when you started to differentiate specifically, you means I am talking about the British people, when they started to completely differentiate the people with each other, when they are not providing the equal rights to them, and Khasi uprising, a home revolt, Singh Foam's rebellion, they are completely uprising against the British ruling classes. You can see on the map, everyone, I have numbers of the examples. You can see on the I think map, everyone, right? You can see already I am discussing about the northwest frontier, northeast section, so you can completely focusing on it, right? The Sikkim, Bihar, West Bengal, Tripura, Mizoram, Nagaland, right? Chakma, Bhil, Nagas, Mizos, Arunachal Pradesh, right? We have a numbers of the examples of it. Now we have a Ahilyas, we can say the Adiyans, we have a Gond, Maharashtra, we have a Bhils, Gujarat, Bardara, we have a numbers of the examples of the tribal areas. Fine. Now let's move ahead, everyone. Characteristics of the tribal areas. In this slide, we are not going to mention only the characteristics. Characteristics means not only we have a reasons, but as well as we are just going to mention about the reasons behind it. What are the reasons? See, characteristics never ever uprising in one day, right? That I always told you that in the history, any of the events or any of the events never ever uprising in a sudden way, right? Everything is happening with the gradual process. Fine. The tribal areas belonging from the northeast section, the tribal areas belonging from the northwest section, or in the Deccan part, in the central India, specifically for Andhra Pradesh, they were already suffering with the we can say the suppression or the exploitation by the Britishers. And somehow in the last 18th century or mid of the 18th century and mid of the 19th century, they not only gradually but they started to uprising in a very sudden basis. That we have a very good example of we can say the Santhala tribal areas, we have a Munda's uprising, so we have a different uprising as well. So in this slide we are not going to discuss about the characteristics, but in specifically we are focusing on what? The reasons, the cause, we can say the factors as well, the religious and the social perspectives as well, that what is the happening behind it actually, right? So what are the characteristics you can say here? First of all, tribal identify or ethics ties by behind the solidarity shown by these groups. Not all outsiders were seen as enemies, right? Not all the outsiders seen as enemies. Who are the outsiders? The British crown or the British governor generals or the British people. The poor who lived by the manual labor or the professional and had the socially, we can say, the economically supportive role, the villages were left alone and the violence was directed towards the money lenders. And why the money lenders? Because the money lenders somehow they were playing the role of the mediators in the land revenue taxation. When the land revenue taxations were high, definitely they are increasing their debt day to day. And when the tribal people were not liable to fulfill all the taxations or all the land, definitely they were acquired or acquisition held completely by the, not only by the British people, but they are completely transferred to the non tribal areas or the people who were already living outside of the country or outside of the outskirts country, we can say villages as well. Fine. They were seen as the extension of the colonial government. Extension of the colonial government means what? That earlier we have a very good example of 1757 that we discussed about the acquisition of Awadh. We have acquisition of Nagpur, Udaipur, Jhansi, Sambhalpur. So we have a different examples. Fine. But on the other hand, definitely we are discussing about the expansion of the colonial government. How the expansion of colonial government is happening actually? When the colonial government or the British crown, they are not completely capturing the states or the province, but slowly they are capturing the people who are living on the outskirts, the people who are living on the barren lands as well, because somehow they are getting the benefits of all the lands, the forest area. And in the 16th century, when we introduced completely about the scientific forestry, where they are completely get out the tribal area from the same area, and when they started to acquisition, they started to acquisite, and when they started to using the lands for their own benefits, right, for the growing for the commercial crops. We have already example of a shifting cultivation as well. Now, against the foreign government, because the foreign government policy is not completely favoring the tribal people. The common cause, what is the common cause? The resentment against the imposition of the laws. Imposition of the laws means what? Who were making the laws? The British crown, the British governor generals and the British people. So definitely the laws are not going to favoring anymore in the tribal people. Now, by the foreign government, that was seen as the efforts of destroying the tribal tradition. Why you are destroying the tribal tradition and social economic framework? What is the actual framework of the tribal people? The actual framework of the tribal people, they are living together and they are celebrating everything, their own things with their own traditional basis. But when you started to completely destroying the tribal traditions, when you are not allowing, specifically the British people, they were not allowing the tribal people to using or to celebrating their own traditions, when you completely using the policies to divide and rule to the tribal people. And we have a very good terminology, we can say the Sanskritization of the tribal people. When we started to filter the tribal people, not only the upwards as well as from the downwards to the upwards direction. And the social economic framework means what? When you completely snatched or you completely vanished the social equality, and when you started to acquisite the land of the tribal people, whose permanent source is completely based on not only the agriculture, but also when they started to counting the lands, their own lands, as their permanent source for further generations. Fine. So this is all about the slide, everyone. Now let's move ahead on the next slide. We have a next very good example about the many uprising were led by the we can say the messiahs, like figures who encouraged their people. And who are the messiahs? To revolt and who held out in the promise that they could end their suffering brought about by the outsider. So who are the messiahs actually? Like the figures, when we talking about the Mahatma Gandhi, right, and technological backwardness, what is happening actually? You can see the map on the screen, everyone. I hope my map is completely visible to everyone. Okay, so what about the we can say you can say the different people, different tribal areas basically on the Indian map. And specifically when you completely see the regions of northeast section, right, we have Nagas, Khasi, we have a Rang, Santhala, Mundas, right, we have a Gondas as well, Bhil, Shahalas, Bhotia, we have a Banjaras as well. So you can see numbers of the tribal communities were already living there, and the existing of the still the tribal people, the tribal community is still prevalent in the India, right? The tribal uprising were doomed from the beginning, given the outdated arms, right? So a technological backward means what? When we don't have any modern weapons, when we don't have any modern weaponization, we don't have any skills as well. So they fought with against the modern weapons and techniques used by the opponents. So definitely what is happening actually, when the tribal people were started to fighting with their old arms, old weapons, old skilled arms, so definitely you never ever stand in front of the British Crown or British Governor Generals. Now the conclusion, if I'm talking about the whole conclusion of the chapter, everyone, I hope my question is completely delivered to everyone, that what we are discussing in the question. In the whole in this specifically answer writing question, we are discussing about the tribal people, their impact, their social, their economic, their political, their administrative approaches with for whom the British Crown, the British Governor General, or we can say the British people, right? In this specifically answer writing, we are discussing about the tribal uprising, that how the tribal uprising is occurring actually, and why the tribal people's land and their agriculture and the land acquisition is completely captured by the British Crown, how it is happening actually, right? So in the conclusion, we can say easily, this is a very beautiful picture. I can say you can see on the screen, everyone, right? Conclusion, we can easily say that it is evident that the colonial rule, even during the day of the East India Company, witnessed numerous uprising and disturbances. And number two, we can say the grievances, we can say they climax the revolt of 1857, because in 1857, yesterday I already discussed about the causes, the factors behind 1857, that we already discussing about the feeling of nationalism, how it is uprising. And what about the Deccan people, and what about the Sikhism, what about the Sindh people? They were completely not participating in 1857. Why they are not suffering with nationalism, the feeling of nationalism as well? Why some of the prominent province like Nagpur, Jhansi, Sambalpur, Udaipur, they are completely devoted themselves for fighting for nationalism? Or yesterday we discussing about the feeling of the nationalism suddenly uprising, or it is gradually come across. Fine. So we can see also that in India we have a numerous of the tribals community, that I am showing the map earlier. You can see the map as well. We have a numerous of the tribal areas, but specifically if I am talking about some or we can say the few of the tribal community, you can see the northeast section, the Santhala, the Murmurs, the Bhils of the Rajasthan. There's some of the prominent tribal people, or we can say the tribal community, completely participating themselves. Completely participated themselves in the themselves against the British Crown or the Governor General of British people, where they were not completely, I can say, in the numbers of the people, they are not completely getting any modernized weapons. So this is somehow the failure of the nationalism. Even they were looking for their own rights, but why they were failure? Because they were not any type of a modern weaponries, they were not any type of we can say the skilled people, they any skilled capacity we have, we can say. So that's why the failure of the uprising of the tribal people completely happened, that's why. And this is spite of the targeting certain groups of the Indians remains the prominent uprising against the British before the beginning of the Indian freedom movement, right? I would like to read the ones that which in spite of targeting to whom? Targeting the weak groups. We have a weak groups, and who were make the groups weak? The British Crown, the British Governor Generals. When we're talking about the targeting people, the people who are belonging from the middle class families, when they don't have any sources of survival. The next group we can say the tribal people, they don't have any sources for the survival, and the people from a peasantry class, and the lands were completely acquisition by the British Crown. So the Indian remains the prominent uprising. Somehow it is completely, we can say, uprising the feeling of a nationalism, and the feeling of nationalism and the togetherness of the people and the participation of the whole communities, we can see exactly in the freedom movement in 1942 or 1947 as well, everyone, right? So this is all about the conclusion, we can say, specifically for the tribal movement and the uprising of the tribal movement in India. Fine. Now let's move ahead for the next question. In this question, if you have any query, if you have any doubt, definitely you can ask me. In this question, I would like to sum up and I would like to mention the summary once in 2 or 3 lines. What is mentioning, what I mentioned, right? So in this session, I can say what is what I mentioned here. I mentioned here about the tribal uprising. Just a minute. I'm mentioning about the tribal uprising, how it happened actually. Now, I mentioned about the impact of what? Impact of social, the economic, the political, right? The we can say the administrative, right? We have a cultural, we have a religious, right? When we discuss about the reasons, what were the reasons, right? What were the reasons? We are discussing about the objectives. We are discussing about the space and time. We're discussing about the aims. We're discussing about whatever the factors. We're discussing about the conclusion. Right? Religion is already mentioned there. So this is all about the, I can say the answer writing format, everyone. And you can say what is being changed, and we can say district, we can say inhabited by tribe, right? So Abor, Khamti, Missionary, Taruni, Momba, any Naga tribe. So these are one of, we can say specifically any of the Naga tribes. This is somehow a very prominent and very important part of a tribal community. And this, I can say the slide is not very much important specifically for the mains perspective, because it is very difficult to learn or remember everything. So you can take a look of it, everyone. The rest of the slides or the rest of the PDFs, definitely I will provide you in the group, exam for IAS English medium, so you can join us. So no need to learn everything. You can just, I think, remember the ideas, because it is important as per the perspective for the prelims, not for the mains perspective. And in the mains perspective, earlier I am showing you the map, everyone. This map is a very playing a very prominent and very important role as per the need of your, we can say the map sketching. So whenever the question will come directly on the tribal uprising, so it is a duty of you people that you have to mention, you have to sketch the map. And there is a no need to mention everything that you mention about the Santhala, the Bhages, the Gondas, the Bhils. Some 3 or 4 tribal areas you have to count down, you have to mention there, you have to locate it on the map as well, so that examiner will get to know that the student or the candidate have a good idea about tribal areas, the location, the, we can say, geographical features of the tribal community as well, everyone, right? One more thing, everyone, the tribal areas, basically for the Santhala areas, this is somehow a very prominent, and this is somehow in the news in these days, everyone, because our president, in the present president, Draupadi Murmu ji, she is now the president of India. She is belonging from a tribal area, basically from Santhala area, Santhala tribal area. So it is somehow a very prominent, or we can say the burning issues specifically for the needs of the tribal people. So it is the duty of your aspirant that you have to analysis, the depth analysis of the economic, the political and the administrative approaches of tribal people, and you have to discuss and you have to mention the located specifically for northeast section, the Santhalas, the Mundas, and you have to become a very keen observer of the knowledge specifically based on your Santhala tribal areas, their economic, their culture and their political, their needs, we can say, and what type of the improvements you have to choose to make their life more uplifted and more improved. Fine. So this is all about the question, everyone. Now let's move ahead for the next question. We will discussing about the next question on the screen, everyone. Now, Battle of Buxar I would like to mention here. You can see on the screen, everyone. Battle of Buxar. You can see on the screen. Now, Battle of Buxar 1764. In yesterday's session, I already mentioning about the Battle of Plassey 1757, and how Battle of Plassey 1757 completely changed history drastically. In this session, we will try to correlate. We will try to correlate the Battle of Plassey first of all, 1757 to 1764. Just a minute. 1761, the first battle of the third battle of Panipat. 1764 and 1765. Right. 1757, it is completely changed, drastically changed, we can say, not only socially but economically. Economically, we can focusing on it. It is very important as per the knowledge of 1757. 1767, the third battle of Panipat. 1764, that we are going to discuss about Battle of Buxar, everyone. And 1765, why 1765? Because somehow 1765, it is known as a Treaty of Allahabad, right? And the Treaty of Allahabad not only giving the chance to the Britishers to acquisite the whole economic power of the India, but somehow the Allahabad Treaty 1765 providing the Britishers to make India more to acquisite the more colonial power, to suppress the Indian people, to gaining the economic profit, and the commercialization of the crops and the commercialization of the trade is completely arising due to the Allahabad Treaty in 1765. So we are just going to correlating everything. Again, we are using the interdisciplinary approach in the question. So this is somehow a very prominent, we can say, and very important battle specifically for the Indian history, which is completely not changed the perspective of the Indian rulers, the Awadh, we can say the Bengal, the West Bengal, Bihar, Odisha, but as well as they are somehow completely end up the powers of the Nawabs of the Indian ruling class. Now, and 1761, this is the third battle of Panipat, when the ruling power of the Marathas completely ended over, and the new era completely was began, where the British crown, the authority of the British crown completely, we can say, making more stronger than we have earlier, right? So of all the battles fought by the British India, the Battle of Buxar paved the way of expansion. You can say the expansion by whom? Expansion by the British people. And expansion by what? Expansion by the economically, the trade, the commerce, the benefits, we can say. Now, consolidation is what? When the authority and the power is completely consolidated by the British crown, or we can say the British people. Now, the British Empire in India, you can see the line, everyone, British Empire in India. This is somehow showing the existence, the authority, right? We can say the हिंदी में कहते हैं ना कि अपने गढ़ को, किसी चीज को जमा लेना वहां पर, right? So this is somehow it is showing the empire in India. And in this question we are going to examine what we are going to examine. We are somehow going to examine the battle fought by the British in India, how the 1764, the Battle of Buxar, playing a very important, very crucial and very initial role in the drastic change in the history, and how just because of that, due to the Battle of 1764, how it is completely the economic and the trading and the commercial and the social power not only expanded by the British rule, but on the another way they completely consolidate the power, because after that we have a very good we can say we have a very good expansion of the acquisition of the different provinces we have. And 1765 Allahabad Treaty somehow giving the chance to the Britishers that the expansion, the consolidation of the social, economic, the land acquisition, the commercialization is become more faster than earlier. Fine. So this is all about the we can say the quick introduction of the whole 1764 Battle of Buxar. In the upcoming slides we are going to take the slides one by one. You can see everyone the approach. What is the approach of the question that you are choosing? I hope you completely getting the question, everyone, that what is the question is saying you. Question is saying you about the differentiation, that how the 1764 Battle of Buxar completely changed history drastically, number one, and how 1764 Battle of Buxar completely expanded and consolidation of the power of the British ruling in India, and how the British ruling power completely existing their own power, they're completely, we can say, make their feet more stronger than earlier time. Fine. So what we are going to choose in the approach in the question, everyone, you can see on the board. The first thing that you have to discuss about the Battle of Buxar introduction, that how the Battle of Buxar is happening there, number one. Number two, we are going to discuss about the elaboration. It means we are discussing about the expansion. The consequences we are going to discuss. We can see the consequences, we can see the reasons as well. We can say the reasons as well. We can see the factors. We can see the impact. Right? The consequence, the reason, the factor and the impact of the 1764 Battle of Buxar. Now, show how the paved way of the expansion in which the economic and the social, economic, the land acquisition, because we have a very good examples of the Mahalwari system 1793, and when the Battle of Buxar is happening 1764. We have a Mahalwari system, we have a Raitwari system as well, right? We have a Bengal famine because of the exploitation of the economic power, economic we can say sources by the Britishers. Consolidation, what we really want to consolidate, what we really want to completely need in our hand by the Britishers, the power, the Nawab's power, right? The British Empire in India. In the third point, we are discussing about the 22 October 1764 between the forces under the commando of the British East India Company led by Hector Munro and the combined armies of Mir Qasim, the Nawab of Bengal till 1763, the Nawab of Awadh and the Mughal Emperor Shah Alam 2. So you can see the name of the people. I would like to mention again, everyone. They are somehow a very important character. And 1754, we cannot forget one more important character, the Mir Jafar, which is completely we can say changed with Mir Jafar. Mir Jafar with Mir Qasim. Battle of Buxar fought on 22nd of October 1764, number one. Between, with whom? The forces under the command of British East India Company. Who is commanded of British East India Company? Hector Munro, East India Company. Now, and in front of the East India Company, by commanding Hector Munro, we can say, the combined army with whom? The Mir Qasim, right? Mir Qasim, again, he somehow, we can say, the subordinate of the Nawab Sirajuddaulah, right? Nawab of Bengal till 1763, Nawab of Awadh, we can say, right? And the Mughal Emperor Shah Alam 2. Three of the people. And British East India Company emerged victories, defeating the Mughals forces. They were ended by the signing of Treaty of 1765, Allahabad Treaty. So you can, if I'll just showing you the point number 3, I would like to elaborate the point first of all. The British East India Company and emerged victorious, defeating the Mughal army. If you're looking the whole scenario, the point number 3, I will say, right? You can see the whole point, and you can just judging the whole points, everyone. You can just I feel so ki you have to look the points in a very depth manner. One-sided, the one Governor General completely commanded the British ruling power, East India Company. In front of them, in front of the Hector Munro, we have a moreover three powers. Shah Alam II, we have a Mir Qasim, and we have a already, we can say the Nawab of Bengal, right? So it is a very difficult to say that just because of the less knowledge of the commanding, just because of not prepared for the battle, they completely defeated. And signing of Treaty of Allahabad Treaty again 1765, giving a complete authority, giving and provided the complete consolidation to the British power that we already studying in the point number 1. Now, you can see the map, everyone. Plassey that we done yesterday, 1760, 1757, right? Robert Clive and Sirajuddaula. Fine. And we have a very good example of a Bihar, West Bengal, you can say Bihar, Odisha, Bengal, Bihar. Buxar, you can say 1764, right? From East India Company, Britishers, we have a Hector Munro. And in India, we have a Shah Alam II, we have a Mir Qasim, we have a Nawab of Bengal. In 1764, they completely won the battle and they defeated completely. So what is happening at the last? We can saw the Allahabad Treaty in 1765. It is providing, what it is providing actually? It is providing actually the consolidation and the expansion to the Britishers, right? And the expansion to the Britishers. Now, Acha, in this map, I would like to show you one thing, that Bihar is always become the part of the central concern, right? Buxar and the Plassey. Now, participants of the Battle of Buxar that I already mentioned you, everyone. So I would not going to mention everything in a detailed manner. Mir Qasim, administrative Bengal, you can say the place of Mir Zafar, because Mir Zafar was completely not satisfied in a Battle of Plassey, right? Nawab Bengal, number 1. Sirajuddaula, Nawab of Awadh. Shah Alam II, we can say Mughal Emperor. And Hector Munro, British Army Major and Robert Clive. And he disliked, you can say, role in the Battle of Buxar. What is happening actually? You can see first of all about the Bengal. Let me discuss about the Bengal. What is happening in the Bengal actually? He disliked misuse of a dastak, farmans by the English, hence tried to conspire. What is dastak and farmans actually? See, dastak, we can see the duties, and the farmans, we can see the orders. Before taking the permission by the East India Company, when we discussing about 1757 yesterday, what is happening actually? Sirajuddaula was the one complete emperor, and everything is just happening just because of their farmans and their orders, right? Suddenly, in 1757, Robert Clive came out and asking to Sirajuddaula, and said ki we are just going to provide you 3,000 per year, and for in that way we are just looking the whole. What we are looking actually? Free trade right. What we are looking actually? We are looking for a free trade right, and that Aman is mentioning there. Fine. So what is happening actually in Dastak and Farman? English hence tried to conspire against them by forming the alliance with the Nawab of Awadh and Mughal Emperor. Right. Dastak is somehow not only the free trade, so they are completely not doing the trade in Bengal and Awadh. They are completely doing the trade from different provinces and different areas of India. which is completely not accepted by Sirajuddaula. That's why 1757 Robert Clive in the favor of Britishers, they fought, and somehow Sirajuddaula completely defeated the battle as well. So was a part of the confederacy with the Mir Qasim and the Shah Alam too, right? What about the Awadh actually happened? What is happening in the Awadh actually? Awadh, Sirajuddaula was a part of a confederacy with the Mir Qasim and Shah Alam too, right? And Shah Alam too, Mughal emperor, somehow we can say puppet on the seat. He is not somehow authoritative to address the East India Company, to address the other Nawabs as well. So he wanted to overthrow English from the Bengal, right? Because Shah Alam too is completely somehow afraid, we can say scared, just behavior of the 1757, that what was is happening earlier, it is completely not accepted by Shah Alam too. Hector Munro, British Army, Major Robert Clive. Robert Clive not only playing the very prominent role in 1757 First Battle of Plassey, and British Army Major Hector Munro completely playing the important role in the Battle of Buxar. Fine, so he led the battle from the English side, and Robert Clive was the person who is completely not only a very good commander, right? And the way he commanding the things, if you're remembering the Waterloo battle in European context, Robert Clive somehow commanding the we can say the battle, and Napoleon somehow appreciating Robert Clive while saying that definitely he won the Waterloo battle, but definitely he's completely appreciating Robert Clive, the way he fighting, the way he commanding, the way he showing the presence in the battle. Fine. And they led the battle from the English side, signed the treaty with Sirajuddaula and Shah Alam too after winning the battle, right? So what is happening later on? You can see the participants, you can see the reason behind it, and what is happening at the last, when the three of the powers, the Awadh, the Mughals and the Bengal, they completely defeated just because of the Hector Munro strategical or diplomatic policies. Now, you can see everyone the different image on the screen. He is Shah Alam too from Mughal. Right, and you can see on the screen what we are going to mentioning in the body, everyone, that the Battle of the Buxar had far-reaching implications in the consolidation of the British Empire. It influenced the political, economic conditions of the Bengal in particular and of the Indian Journal. The Battle of Buxar had far-reaching implications. Far-reaching implication means then we have completely about the acceptance of the Dastak, Farmans. In one word, if I am saying the Diwani rights, the Diwani rights means they completely consolidating the authority to collecting the taxation, right? Now, it influenced the political consolidation. Awadh, Bengal, we have a Odisha, we have a Bihar, we have a Bengal. Economic is what? Dastak and Farmans and the Diwani rights, when they are completely taking the authority to collect the revenue. And one more thing they are showing here about the trading rights, that no one is going to stop them now, because they already having the right of Dastak and Farmans and Diwani rights. So Bengals particularly and the Indian Journal. Fine. Socially, if I'm there is no need to mention everything, everyone. I already mentioned. Let's move ahead. Now, symbolic victory we can say. Unlike the Battle of Plassey, we can say was a more more of British conspiracy. The Battle of Buxar was full-fledged wars which established to the British prowesses in the warfare. It means we can say the way we are planning the Battle of Plassey 1757, and you can completely correlating the behavior of Robert Clive with Mir Jafar. On the another way, in the Battle of Buxar, again Robert Clive showing his cleverness, and Hector Munro somehow commanding the battle. And Battle of Buxar, when we saw the conflict between Shah Alam too, we have a Mir Qasim and we have a Shah Alam too as well, and the benefit is completely using by the British Crown. And the defeat of the great Mughal houses was a very significant. The importance, the factors, we can say the aim, the objectives, stamped the British troops, because the we can say the Indian our Nawabs, they were not somehow very much risked, or we can say the skilled to using the weapons. One of the potent forces of the Indian subcontinent. So definitely what the result is going to be held, they completely defeated the Battle of Buxar. Fine. Now, economic avenues. Economic avenues, when we discussing about the dastaks, when we discussing about the Diwani rights, and when we discussing about the farmans. So you can see the image, a very good image on the screen. I feel the image is not colorful, but you can see the image, everyone. Right, you can see one of the Indian ruler is sitting on the chair, and British Governor General standing in front of him, and he just asking about the acceptance of the giving the opportunities, right, about the dastak and diwanis, which is completely handed over to the British Crown. Treaty of Allahabad, which is happening in 1765, formally gave the British Company the rights to exact revenue from the eastern province, specifically for Bengal, the Odisha, we can say the complete West Bengal wala part, and the economic fortune of the company, where they are completely doing the free trade, the commercialization of the trade, they are completely free to collect the revenue from the lands, and it provided the company of a huge resources, which is could divert of the strengthening its army. And who are going to strengthening the army? Because when the British Crown is completely handed over their own army to the Nawabs of Bengal, Bihar and Odisha, and said that definitely you have to be completely nourishing, you have to be completely take care of our army, and whenever we needed the army, you are always you always available to providing the army, and you have to at least handling or maintaining everything, the expenditure of the army with your own self. Fine. And further, and in behalf of it, they are somehow providing the protection to the Bengal's Nawab, the Bihar Nawabs and the Awadh Nawab. The balance of payment, which until now was in the favor of the India, shifted in favor of Britishers, and they could now finance their own trade from the revenue journal from their territories of the Bengal, Odisha and Bihar, right? Now, because they are getting the dastak and diwani rights from the Bengal, Bihar and Odisha. Now, expansions motives. Why they want to expand themselves? What is the reason behind it? The British victory at Buxar ensured that there was no significant forces left to challenge the position in the eastern part of the subcontinent. Why they are expanded? Because British victory in 1764, Battle of Buxar, right? The Buxar ensures that there was no significant, or we can say there is no important forces left to challenge. That means no one is left behind it to challenge them. Position in the eastern part of the subcontinent, eastern part like Bengal, we have a Bihar, we have a Odisha and we have a Awadh as well. The defeat of the Nawab of the Awadh created buffer state, which effectively created a wall between the British and the notorious Marathas. And what is happening at the last? We have a 1761, when the Marathas completely defeated with Ahmad Shah Abdali. So what is happening at the last? The Marathas, who were sometime became the obstacle for British ruler, they are completely defeated. Fine. Now, political stronghold. What is the political stronghold actually? Political stronghold means when the following the Treaty of Allahabad in 1765, Robert Clive from the Britishers side set up the infamous, we can say the dual system of administration in Bengal, where the company acquired. Dual system is when we are looking for the two-sided system, right? The one-sided, the company acquired the real power. What is the real power? When we are talking about the economy, when we are discussing about the army, the weapons, the expenditure of the army, the maintaining of the army, this is completely handed over to whom? The Indian Nawabs, the Mughal rulers. Fine. The real power is what? The justice, the administration, the taxation is completely handed over by whom? The Britishers. administration rests on the Nawab of Bengal, and under the dual or double government system, the company got both the Diwani, the revenue, and the Nizama, the civil administration. Civil means the maintenance of the army, right? And revenue means when they are when they completely get the authority to collect the revenue, revenue rights from the agriculture areas or land acquisitions. Fine. The virtual power went into the hands of the Britishers without any responsibility, which if I'm talking about the British Crown, the land acquisition, the revenue taxation, what is the role behind it? There is no so much responsibility, as they are following by the your Nawabs, which created confusion, anarchy, and economic loot of Indian began. And what is happening actually, that by introducing the dual system, by introducing the dual government, everything is gonna be in the favor of the British rulers, and the rest of the responsibility to maintaining the administration, to maintaining the expenditure, the army, this is the responsibility taken by the Indian Nawabs. And what is happening in behalf of that British ruler, somehow providing the protection from the Marathas and from the invasions coming out from the northwest sections of the India. Now, residents in the Indian states. After the Battle of Buxar 1764, company appointed residents in the Indian states. They were politically, when the acquisition of the authority of the politics, commercial agents, and their jobs was to serve and further the interest of the company. Though the residents, the company officials began inferring the internal affairs of the Indian states. It means any of the British Crown, if he is seated in Awadh, Nawab, Awadh, Bengal, or Odisha, Bihar, West Bengal, none of the Indian rulers were not authorized or liable to interference in their own personal matters. The policy was made effective and further developed into subsidiary alliance by Lord Wellesley. And subsidiary alliance is what? When the Awadh, when the Bengal, the Odisha, the Bihar, they are completely choosing the subsidiary alliances, the helping alliances, where they are completely expanding their own army, their own military, as per the need or as per the demand of the British Crown. Fine. Now, after Battle of Buxar, what is happening actually? 1764, Clive defeated them and Mir Qasim fled with the others, signed the Treaty of Allahabad 1765. 1765. What is happening with 1765? The Dastaks, the Diwani rights, and they are introducing the dual system. And in the dual system, we have two types of the powers, right? One power, we can say the real power, and one power is known as what? The power in the favor of the Indian rulers by the British Crown. So what is in the favor? In this favor, we have a military, we have an army, we have a revenue, we have a taxations. And what is happening with the Indians? They are just maintaining the administration, they are just maintaining the military power, not handed over the military power. It is the duty of the Nawabs of the Bengal, Bihar, Odisha, and the ruling powers of the Mughal era, Mughal period, sorry, the designation of the Mughal. They are completely maintaining that they are just fulfilling the needs of the army, right? The army. Right, and as a result, all territories were returned to the Nawab of Awadh except Kora and Allahabad, which were given to the emperor along with the expansion and the rest of the pensions. What about the conclusion? What are we getting in the conclusion actually? The Battle of Buxar enhanced the power of the East India Company. How it is enhancing the power of the East India Company? They are enhancing the power of the East India Company when they are completely adopting, I hope my pen is visible. Okay, just a minute. Is it visible, everyone? Yes. The Diwani rights, and introducing the dual system. Introducing the dual system. You can see on the image, everyone. This is somehow a very beautiful, I think, the image which I am imposing on the screen, everyone. It is somehow showing you, everyone, that how the British crown is completely snatched, or how the Nawab of Bengal, Bihar, Odisha, they completely handed over the power and the dual hierarchy system, right, to the British power. And we can say managed to extend its jurisdiction beyond the boundary of the Bengal. Jurisdiction beyond the boundary of the Bengal. Boundary of the Bengal, what? Awadh. We have a Marathas. We have a Deccan. We have a Sikh. We have a Afghanistan and the rest of the Lahore and Punjab part. I got an opportunity to enter successful into the politics of India. What is happening when they started to control the what? The administration. The administration helped the British to carve out their empire in India. In the words of Sir James Stephen, the Battle of Buxar deserves far from credit than the Battle of Plassey. I hope you're getting my point. That Battle of Plassey just making the surface for the Battle of Buxar, and that's why the same characters of the Battle of Plassey, somehow Mir Zafar when he replacing Mir Qasim, Sirajuddaulah replacing Sujaduddaulah, and Shah Alam too, the same characters are still participating in the Battle of Buxar, because they were not satisfying with the Battle of Plassey, and they were somehow feeling the insecurity, the loss of the political and economic power. That's why they started against standing against the British power, and the Battle of Plassey as the origin of the British power in India, right? That's why sometimes we are discussing about the Plassey to the time of a division, the 1757, somehow creating the basic surfaces for different battles. We have a 1764 Battle of Buxar, 1765 Allahabad Treaty, 1857 First War of Battle, First War of Independence. We have different battles and different wars as well. So British power in India somehow creating the surface as per the James Stephen's wordings, we can say in his own words. Right, so this is the Battle of Buxar, everyone. I hope this is completely clear to everyone. If you have any doubt, any question, any query, you can ask me as well. So we are just going to mention about, everyone, the conclusion I already mentioning you, and in the next I can say in the next answer writing I would like to mention, I would like to discuss about 1905, the Bengal of partition, right? So I hope everyone will be there for joining the session, and I have a break for 5 minutes. We will get back at 1 p.m. and we will discussing about rest of the parts. Yes, so everyone. I hope my voice is completely audible and visible, everyone. So, in this session now, for next answer writing, we're just going to discuss about the Bengal of partition. We can say Partition of Bengal, 1905. Okay, I hope my voice is completely audible and visible, everyone. Now, for the next answer writing question, you can see the slide on the screen, everyone. Though Swadeshi movement failed in achieving its immediate objectives or played a very significant role in it, how Indian freedom struggle discuss करना है हमें 250 words में, right? Let me understand the question first of all, everyone. What they are asking about, though Swadeshi movement, what is happening in 1905, failed in achieving the immediate objectives, failed to achieving the aim. And what is aim? He is asking about the aim of nationalism. The significant role, we can say the importance, again the factors and the aim, right? In Indian freedom struggle. Indian freedom struggle means when we are struggling for the freedom, and each and every part of the Indian community, they are participating in it. Fine. You can say Bengal 1905 to 1911. 1911 was the time at Delhi Darbar we can say, is happening there. And you can see on the screen, everyone, you can see the greenish part on the map, we can say, and this is the West Bengal and East Bengal. This is finally divided, right? Disabled now. The red portion is not the part of the Bengal now. This is completely disabled. The yellowish part you are showing on the screen, everyone. These are the princely state on the time of the British era. The princely state, we can say. Fine. And the red part is not the part of the now the 1905, the Bengal part. The rest of the part of, you can say, Bengal 1905. This is the present time of 1905 Bengal in India. Now, so it is now to understand the question. What is question is asking to you people? The question is asking about the failure, the achievement, and the factors behind it, and the aims, and how it is not playing and how 1905 Bengal partition is not playing the significant role in the Indian freedom struggle. So approach, what is the approach of the question? You have to understand first of all what they are asking actually. They are asking about the failure. They are asking about 1905. They are asking about the failure. In failure, what are the objectives of the failure, right? And when we and also we are discussing about the significant role where in freedom struggle. In freedom struggle. So in this approach of the question, we are discussing about briefly discuss about Swadeshi movement 1905, the movement for Swadesh, reason for failure of Swadeshi movement. We are discussing about the factors and reasons. Impact of Swadeshi movement on Indian national movement. Impact and conclusion. Now, Partition of Bengal 1905, the reasons. We are discussing about the reasons. We can also set that reasons on the place of factors. What are the factors of the failure? Right? What are the objectives of the failures? The first factors we are just count down. The first point we can say the British administrative inconvenience. Right? The Bengal was too large for one man, treated as a measure for improvement of administration, the vast territory in charge of the Lieutenant Governor of Bengal. The first cause we can say that they are giving the excuse that Bengal is a very big state and it is very difficult to run by a single British Lieutenant Governor General. This is the first reason. It doesn't mean that they are showing the somehow the soft corner for the Indian. No, never. They are just using the power of divide and rule. Divide and rule. Why? Because in Bengal was only the state in 1905 when numerous of the secular religion like Hinduism, the Muslim, the Christianity, they are living together. So divide and rule policy, we can say somehow helping the Britishers to divide the Bengal easily. That's why that they are just giving the excuse, the so-called excuse we can say that we cannot run the state in the same format. So what you are doing actually, we have to divide the things so that we can at least reach up all the sources to both the continents. Province, we can say the East Bengal or we can say the West Bengal. Now, actual political Lord Curzon imperialist nature suppress the nationalism, the feeling of nationalism, the feeling of patriotism, the feeling of boycott, the feeling of Swadeshi. Swadeshi, Swayam ka desh, right? Now, partition of Bengal and Swadeshi movement. We are just going to discussing about how we can correlate the Swadeshi movement with partition of Bengal. Right? Partition of Bengal is happening in 1905, and on this reason and on this behalf Swadeshi movement is came out when we are completely boycotting the British crown or British rule, and we said we are just going to rule as per the need of the Indian basic sources and needs. Right? Bengal was the nerve center of Indian nationalism. Why? Why it is happening? Because from the beginning of the time, West Bengal, the Bengal famine 1791, Bengal famine 91, we have a land revenue settlements implemented first time 1793. We have a Rayatwadi, we have a Mahelwadi, we have a permanent settlement, right? On the another way, Bengal is somehow working as a more, we can say, the part of a Renaissance period in 19th century as well, right? Where we have a numbers of the literatures, we have a numbers of the literatures, we have a numbers of the books. Somehow we are awareing the people, the educated people belonging from different areas. They are somehow preaching the people, they somehow awareing the people about everything. Right, the idea of the partition of the Bengal was quite old one, right? And the partition plan was drawn 1889. It means the partition of Bengal is not happening suddenly in 1905. It is already a very old idea, and I am also giving the example of doctrine of lapse as well. But was dropped because of a strong opposition in Bengal. On December 3, 1903, Lord Curzon laid out the notorious plan regarding partition of Bengal, based by giving the excuse that we cannot run the state, the whole state, because the Bengal is completely the part of a large subcontinent where rest of the people are living there, Hindu, Muslims, Christianity. So it is a difficult to participate with the people, and it is a very difficult to feed each and every people in the same state. So Lord Curzon giving the so-called excuse that we want to partition the Bengal in East Bengal or in the West Bengal, based on so-called administration, and with the population 78 million has been the big administrative, right? But the real purpose was that I earlier told you that the real purpose of was that they somehow dividing the people, and the Bengali nationalism. The Bengali nationalism in 19th or 20th century, we can say the part of a Renaissance period, where the people like Raja Ram Mohan Roy, the people like Vivekanand, Dayanand Saraswati, they are completely participating. They are somehow the people like Rabindranath Tagore, they somehow completely participating in it, and they somehow awareing the people with the help of printing press, with the help of books, with the help of the preaching the people about the, we can say, the intention of the British crown or British people. Fine. And communal and linguistic basis, linguistic when we are discussing about the languages, right? And as the Home Secretary Lord Harbord recently started, the Bengal united is a power, Bengal divided will pull in the several different ways. And that's why, as per the idea of Lord Curzon, Lord Herbert Risley completely fire back to the Lord Curzon and said the Bengal united is a power. If they are completely looking for the power, they are completely consolidated feeling on the Bengal power. So somehow this is, we can see, the excuse of the Lord Curzon, that he never ever looked at Bengal as a very powerful state, and that's why he completely divided Bengal in two parts, the West Bengal and the East Bengal, because somehow if he's not going to divide the Bengal, definitely Bengal is become the threat back. We can see the threat back, Bengal become the enemy of the Britishers, and somehow the freedom fighting rights we are getting in 1947, definitely Britishers suddenly took away from the India, get rid of the India, and the power of the Britishers is completely ended over. Bengal divided with pull in the several different ways, right? Now, introduction. International Congress, the INC, 1885, right? It's 1885. Fine. The Swadeshi, we can say, the movement in Bengal against the announcement of partition of the Bengal in July 1905 by Lord Curzon, and it was launched as the protest movement, which also gave a lead to the boycott movement in the country, right? Boycott, to whom we want to boycott? We are looking for the Britishers' goods, right? And produce in India a burning British, all the goods that is made by the British authorities. Now, interdisciplinary approach, what we are going to discuss about the broadness. The broadness. About what? The Bengal's partition and reason of what? Swadeshi movement. What? The Swadeshi movement. What is the social history, we can say? Well, Lord Curzon is not going to look at Bengal as a very powerful country. Looking for the impact. Social history is what? When we're discussing about the equality and Britishers not providing the equality to all human beings, economy, when they're giving the excuse that they're not going to feed everyone on the same manner, religiously, because all the community like Hindu, Muslim, Christianity, they're living together. Cultural history, the power of the culture is somehow become the prominent role of the Bengal. So Lord Curzon completely boycotted it. And administrative and polity, because the whole administration and political formation done by the Lord Curzon. System is favored by whom? The British people. Is whom? By the British people. Right? The British people. Now, what about the body? When we're talking about the reasons of the failure, what are the reasons of the failure behind it? Reasons of the failure, 1905. The movement threw up the entire gamut of the techniques and came to be associated with whom? The Gandhian politics, non-cooperation, passive resistance, filling of the British jails, social reform and constructive work. Right? Now, however, the movement failed to create these, we can say, the techniques with disciplined focus and is lacked to effective organization or a party structure. And who were the party structure? 1885 INC. We cannot forget about 1906, the Muslim League. We cannot forget about 1907, the Surat division of whom? The extremist and the moderate, just because of the different opinion. Fine. And next he said the movement about the, we can say the movement aroused the people but did not know how to tap the newly released energy or how to find new forms of give expression to the popular resentment. Now, Surat split internal squabbles among leaders magnified by Surat 1907 because somehow they are not supporting that the Bengal partition is somehow a very prominent ideas, and we can say the very successful part of Swadeshi movement. A leaderless movement, the movement was rendered leaderless with most of the leaders either arrested or deported by 1908, and Aurobindo Ghosh and Vipin Chandra Pal retiring from the active politics. And limited participation is happening there. The movement largely remained confined to the upper and middle classes and zamindari and failed to reach the masses, especially the peasantry. Right? So this is the next reason when the people are completely separated from everyone. Now, impact of Swadeshi movement. Right? Let me discuss the failure first of all, everyone. The reason of the failure. '95 Bengal partition. Right? And what is the reason? Reason outcome? When we're discussing about the Swadeshi movement. Fine. What we are going to discuss about? We are just going to discuss about the reasons. So first reasons I am discussing about 1905 Bengal partition, 1905 Curzon's excuse. Now 1905, 1906 the formation, we can say, formation of Muslim League. Now the next we can say 1907 Surat division. With whom? The extremist and the moderate. Right? So what is happening actually in 1907 and the Surat division? That just because of happening with the different opinions. And what is happening in the last, when the zamindari class, plus people belonging from upper class who completely indulge themselves in the government designations. Right? What is happening? That they are not participating. Not part of Swadeshi movement. And why it is happening actually? It is happening actually when they are asking about the question that why they are not participating. According to the opinions of zamindari class, the upper class and the government designated people, they said no doubt that 1905 Bengal partition is happening just because of the, we can say, the cleverness and the thought process of the Britishers, right? So this is completely accepted. So what about the Swadeshi movement? Is the Swadeshi movement is the key feature, or we can say is the Swadeshi movement is any type of the outcome to went out the Britishers from India, right? The Swadeshi, the youth are not participating in the 1905 Swadeshi movement. When the historians sometimes commenting on it, that no doubt they are left the designation, they are completely accepted the Swadeshi movement, they are completely adopting the techniques of the charkha as well, they are completely looking the small scale industries of the India as well. But what is happening at the last? What about the survival? Right? What about the survival? Is the right way? Is this the right way? Is this the right source, or is this the right way to went out the Britishers from India? So what about the present survival? We can definitely participating in the dharnas, in the julus in 1905 in moreover 10 days, 15 days, 11 days, we can say 1 month as well. But what about after 1 month? What about our survival? How we can survive? How can we feed our families? So can we is the left the all the designations given by the British people to the government servants or the zamindari class who are somehow supporting by the British the governor generals, and the upper class people who are somehow supporting the thought process of the Britishers? They're just asking the question that 1905 is the part of a Bengal partition. We are not completely satisfied with, we are not completely happy as well. But what about the later on consequences? Right? Is the Indian government, is the moderates, is the extremists, those opinions are not already same, and they are divided their philosophies in 1907 Surat division. So are they completely liable to providing us the daily basis sources, the outcomes, the earnings, right? That's why what is happening, these are the somehow the reasons of the failure of the 1905 Bengal partition. Now let's move ahead everyone. Impact of Swadeshi movement. What is the impact of Swadeshi movement? The first thing is change in the strategy. The movement was a turning point in modern Indian history. Turning point in modern Indian history, proved to be a leap forward in more ways than one. Previously untouched sections like students, like the women, the youth, we can say, right? The women, the workers, and some sections of the urban and rural population participated. Urban, who are more educated, just a minute, urban, who are more educated, right, and rural, who are just blindly participating in it, just blindly, just a minute, who are completely or blindly participating in it. Right, so this is all about the impact of the strategy. The strategy is completely going to be failure later on. Now, the trend of the national movements, the trend is what? The conservative moderation to the political extremism, right? When we have a very good example of what? When we have a very good example of Surat division 1907, right? When the moderates 1907 when the moderates and the extremists, the people like Bal Gangadhar Tilak and Aurobindo Ghosh, completely retire from the participation of the national movements. Now, the prayers of the passive resistance. Passive resistance means what? When you are not satisfying with the ongoing presence. And non-cooperation. Non-cooperation, 1921, by the leading role of the Mahatma Gandhi, and emerged during the Swadeshi movement. Government of indigenous industries, the anti-partition agitation, paved the way of the development. Indigenous means what? They are completely doing the work from last 10 to 20 years. And indigenous, the old traditions, the old people are doing all these things. Suddenly, if you are completely boycotting everything, so what about the upcoming generation survivals? Indigenous industries, for the example, Acharya PCS Bengal, chemical stores, the inculcated feeling of the self-reliance by, we can say, reducing the dependency on the foreign goods, right? Where they are somehow completely reducing the dependency of the Indian goods on the foreign goods, when they are completely boycotting of all the foreign goods by the Britishers. Now, we can say the next, growth of a national education, right? Growth of a national education, the movement also increased the demand of national education, and numerous national schools and colleges came up in the various parts, right? National education, why? Because somehow when you completely boycotted the British schools, that our child is not going to school from the day after tomorrow, so what is happening? The people who are somehow wanted to teach their own child, or the youth somehow is going to want to get the education. So what is happening when they completely asking about the national education? National education, it is somehow the Indian national education. Indian national education. And they, what they said about the colleges came up in the various parts. In 1906, that's why the National Council of Education was settled down. National Council of Education was set up finally, and a nation college with Aurobindo Ghosh as a principal was opened in the Calcutta, again the part of Bengal. Right? The movement led to the flourishness of the Bengal literature under Rabindranath Tagore and यहाँ पर रजनीकांत सेन etc. Right? When the people like Rabindranath Tagore and Rajnikant Sen, when they started to awakening the people, awakening, enlightening the people, how they are enlightening? With the help of the education, with the help of the new preaching or the new group discussions with the young youth. Now, attainment of Swaraj, how we can get the attainment of Swaraj, right? Swadeshi as a strategy, we can say, the Swadeshi as a strategy, as we can say, about the, moreover, focusing on the Mahatma Gandhi, and who described as the soul of a Swaraj, became an important tool for Gandhi movement in Indian national movement. Why? Because Gandhi is somehow discussing about what? The policy like non-violence. Like Mahatma Gandhi was the first person who was completely discussing about the rights of the Harijans. Right? And Mahatma Gandhi was the first person who considered as a Masiha by all the tribal people who were completely suffering with the actions of the British crowns or governor generals, or the peasantry class who were completely suffering with the hike in the land revenue taxations, or somehow the people who were suffering from the middle class families or the zamindari class, who also considered Mahatma Gandhi as a Mahatma or a Masiha, because somehow they are feeling the part of the protection from the side of the Mahatma Gandhi, because somehow Mahatma Gandhi is completely approaching the British people for doing the work in the favor, or the positive work in the favor of the Indian people. Right? Now, international movement, important tool. And what is the important tool? What is the important tool? The non-violence, we can say. We have again one important tool, non-cooperation movement. We have a civil disobedience movement, and we have a numerous of the movements. This is somehow a equal participation of every class, every category. Because every class who is belonging from upper class, if I have an example of zamindari class, they also suffered because of the land acquisition and the land exploitation and the economic commercial exploitation by the British people, or we can say East India Company. Now, what about the conclusion of the Swadeshi movement was not successful in reaching its immediate goals? Right? What we can say in the conclusion, you can see the map on the screen, everyone. What the map is telling you actually. The Swadeshi movement was not successful in reaching its immediate goals. Right? What are the immediate goals? That we want to get out the Britishers from India. But it provided a platform for the national freedom struggle. Platform, as we earlier discussing about the 1757, it is also providing the platform to the British people to acquisition, to consolidate the power in 1764 Battle of Buxar. We have another platform of 1765, the Allahabad Treaty, the subsidiary alliances by Wellesley. And we have again 1761, the third battle of Panipat, where Marathas completely lost their powers. And we have a 1905 Bengal partition, where again we are providing the platforms. To whom we are providing the platforms? The Indian people, the youth, the political parties, the Swadeshi movements, the people who are completely not accepted the Britishers as the prominent part of India. The people like from zamindari class, they are completely not adopting the policies of the British class. They are somehow exploiting not only the lands, but land acquisition problems are occurring there. And later it showed the way to nationalist leaders to prepare the masses for the next phase for struggle under Gandhiji leadership, when Gandhiji arriving in India in 1914. Right, I hope this is completely clear to everyone. Let me sum up the lecture, and this is all about the you can say the map of the map of the, just a minute. Okay, we are discussing about the Swadeshi movement was not successful, right? Swadeshi movement, we can say failure of 1905, but we can say one more thing. What are the benefits? What are the benefits? Benefits is happening how? They are somehow providing the platforms, right? Platforms to whom? Platforms they are providing for whom? The zamindari class, right? The peasant class, right? The lower class, not the lower class, because the tribal class, the Harijan class, right? And next we can say the people who are completely merging themselves in the political parties. The political parties. Earlier we were discussing about the Surat division in extremists and the moderates. Fine. So what is happening? They are somehow providing failure. There is definitely, we failed in 1905. We failed. We accepted. Right? We failed. Right? But what are the benefits again? The next benefit is going on for what? We have a National Council of Education. We have a National Council of Education, right? We have a colleges. We have a linguistic the sort out of our linguistic problems. We have again the feeling of nationalism, right? And how we can divide it till the nationalism? till the time of the beginning of the era. We have a 1757, right? We have a again 1761. We have a 1764. We have a, again 1857, and no, last but not the least, we have a 1905. Right? So somehow 1757 is providing us what? Providing us what? The feeling, the uprising, we can say. The uprising. Right? 1761 somehow is providing the next platform in the nationalism. To whom? The whole India. We can say the pan India also. Right? 1764. It is somehow providing the complete feeling of a nationalism, that they curiously want to get out Britishers from India. Right? In 1857, when they are discussing about the first war of independence, when numbers of the people, the zamindari class, the peasantry class, the tribal class, the Harijan, and somehow the political parties, not the political parties, the people who are looking to be become the part of the political parties, somehow they are participating in 1857. And 1957, till the time of arrival of Mahatma Gandhi, till the time of arrival of Mahatma Gandhi. When? In 1914. Right? And what is happening at the last? What is the feeling of nationalism is arising at the last? With the, we can say, the freedom struggle. In the, right, freedom struggle. And what is the component of the freedom struggle? We have a non-cooperation movements, right? We have a civil disobedience movement. We have a Chori Chora as well. And we have a 1942 Quit India movement, and we have a 47 freedom struggle movement, right? So we have a different perspectives of it, right? Now, I hope this is completely clear to everyone. Now, just a minute, I would like to mention one more thing. The outcome. Number 2, the outcome. What is the outcome is happening? The arrival of Mahatma Gandhi, right? And what is the arrival of Mahatma Gandhi initiative? When the people are waiting for the Masiha and the Mahatmas, right? The tribal, the zamindari class. So what the arrival is finally come out with the Swadeshi movement, in the context of Swadeshi movement, when people are looking for the freedom struggle participation. And what is the call of the Mahatma Gandhi? The platform they are creating in 1905. Non-violence, right? So what is the participation and the consequence of 1905 of participation of freedom struggle? We have again, we can say 1920, 1921, 1931, 1942, 1946 and 1947. Why? Right, this is the results of the somehow, this is somehow, we can say, just a minute. Okay, this is somehow providing 1905 failure outcome. What he did actually? what he did actually, he completely providing the platform to whom the freedom struggle movement. 1920 we have a Khilafat movement. 1921 non-cooperation movement, and suspended later on just because of Chori Chora. Right. 1931 we have a civil disobedient movement. Right. 1942 we have a Quit India movement. 46 we have a cabinet mission. Right. And 47 somehow come out with what? With come out, we can say the result of whom? The freedom. And how the freedom is come out? With the failure of 1905 Swadeshi movement in 1947. Right? It's a result come out, we can say, creating the final platform, we can say, creating the final platform. Right? And how the final platform is come out? The final platform is only come out among numbers of the events we have that we can correlate with Mahatma Gandhi, right? But I'm just discussing about the major events which is help to creating the final platform just because of the failure of a 1905 Swadeshi movement, right? Even though if I'm discussing about the correlation with Mahatma Gandhi's, so different events and things. So I have a 1905. I have a 1917 Kheda, Ahmedabad, Champaran, right? We have a Bardoli, we have a Round Table Conference, we have a Pune Pact, we have a numerous of Cripps Mission also. So we have a numerous of the points and numerous of the events which is happening in the favor of the Mahatma Gandhi. But in this slide, I'm just mentioning some of the few events which is playing a major event, or we can say the major role on the time of a Mahatma Gandhi, or in the favoring of the against the British ruler and providing the final result, or we can say the final outcome of the freedom struggle movement. Just because of happened with 1905 the failure outcome platform of the creating the platform of freedom struggle movement, and this is somehow is only come out, how it is come out, with the feeling of a nationalism, which is emerging where जो कहाँ पे ऑलरेडी emerge हो चुका था 1757, 70, 61, 64, 80, 1905, right? So we have a numerous of the examples, we can say. Fine. Okay, now let's move ahead everyone on the next question. Now this is somehow a very we can say the very sensitive topic for answer writing, the role of a woman in the freedom struggle, right? So in this session we're just going to cover about the role of a woman in the freedom struggle movement, everyone, right? I hope my screen is completely visible to everyone. Okay, they are discussing about the role of the women in the various, we can say, various political and environmental movement since independence in India. Environmental movement, why? Because in this session I am going to discuss about the Chipko movement as well. And why the social? Because women is somehow considering as the social aspect of any of the country, right? So whenever we're discussing about the education of the society, primarily we are discussing about the education of the women, right? And India, when we're discussing about the women empowerment, the participation of the women in national struggle, freedom struggle, we have a Quit India movement, we have 1857 as well. we cannot ignore the role of the women, right? So that's why we cannot ignore the role of the women. So it is important to discuss about the participation and how we can make the women more empowered in the same way. We are just going to discuss in the same session. I hope my question is clear to everyone. I'm going to discuss in the session. Let me choose some of the key points of the question, that how we are going to discuss the approach of the same question by choosing the key point. The first thing we are going to discuss, number one, we are going to discuss about the question. What we are discussing, the role we are discussing, where in the social, if we are discussing about the social, we cannot forget about the social religious reformation, we cannot forget about Sati Act, we cannot forget about child marriages, we cannot forget about widow remarriages, and we cannot forget about the contribution of the Margareta sister, we cannot forget about Sarojini Naidu, we cannot forget about Amrita Rao. So some of the few we can say the women in the society who are completely contributing or participating directly or indirectly in the behalf of the all women in the society, specifically in the freedom struggle movement. When was the time in India specifically when we are survival with the evils, when we will survival with the Parda Pratha, the women like Sarojini Naidu, the women like Kamala Dutt, the women like Kamala Nehru, they are completely come out and they're just struggling for themselves, not for them, not for herself only, but surviving for the whole community, for the whole women's society. So in this session, we are completely discussing about the social, we can discussing about the political, and we are discussing about the environmental problems and the movement since independence in India, right? So this is all about the question, everyone. Okay, Aman. So we are just going to further describe the lecture, everyone. Now, what about the introduction? The status of women in India has been subjected to many great changes over the past few millenniums, right? The status of the women, when we discussing about the status, we are discussing about the equality, right, of the women in India, has been subjected of many great changes over the past few millenniums. We can say more over 5,000, we can say more over 10,000, we can say more over 20,000 as well. Still we are suffering with the positions of the equality, still we are suffering with the participation in the political rights, still we are suffering in the empowerment positions in the economic perspectives. Fine. From equal status with the men in ancient times, though the low points of the medieval period. Like we have a very good example of the Vedic era, post-Vedic era, where we are completely denied, what we denied, that we are not going to provide the equal status of the women, and thus hierarchy in the society, the Brahminical society completely denied to accept the position of the women, the equal position of the women, that they are completely boycotted with the education. They were not authorized to take the education, and not only authorized to take the education, but they are not completely visited in the temples on the same level or same space. Fine. Equal status with men in ancient times. In ancient times, though the low points of the medieval period, right, that we have a very good example of a Razia Sultan. The Razia Sultan is somehow a very prominent and very, we can say the potential ruler in medieval India, and she has such a I feel so each and every quality she have that she is playing in the time of the medieval phases, but just because of the men dominancy, she is completely boycotted, right? And to the promotion of the equal rights by the many reformers. And when we're discussing about the reformers, we cannot forget about the 19th century and earlier. We have a numbers of the people, we can count down. We have Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Sati Act, then Dayanand Saraswati, Rabindranath Tagore, Kamala Nehru, Kamala Dutt, and as well as we cannot forget about the role of Sarojini Naidu. We cannot forget about Jyotiba Phule's wife, right? So we have a numbers of the people who are completely discussing about the favor of the women, favor of the rights, right? The modern in modern India, when we're discussing about 19th century, women have adorned high offices in India, including that of the president, right, the prime minister, speaker of the Lok Sabha. That we have a very good examples. We cannot forget about Meera Kumar. We cannot forget about the present lady president Draupadi Murmu ji. We cannot forget about the earlier we have a Pratibha Devi Singh Patil, and we cannot forget about the earlier poet we have Subhadra Kumari Chauhan, right. So we have a numbers of the leaders in Lok Sabha leader and the opposition. However, women in India generally are still exposed numerous social issues. Still we have a come out, we have traveling from 5,000 to 10 years faster. We have a somehow generations gap also. We have educated now, we have a economic backup also, we are financially uplifted. But what is the problem is occurring behind it, that we are still suffering with the social status, the social equality status. Still we are suffering on the gender gap disabilities. Still we are suffering with the GER problem. So what is the cause behind it? When the men dominancy society, on the mentality of the society is completely not providing the authority to the women on the same level or on the same space. Fine. Now, according to the global study conducted by Thomson Reuters, India is the fourth most dangerous country in the world for women. This is somehow we can say the worst statement for India, where we are still suffering from 131 position in 146 countries in the education sector. This is the data of 2022. And on the another way, when we are getting 141 position out of 146 countries in the gender gap index. Gender gap index. This is the data of 2022 again. So what we are expecting actually in the society? What we needed actually in the society? Is that possible to survive without it, without the status of equality, without the equal participation in the society, right? Now, status of the women in modern India. I hope my screen is completely visible to everyone, right? Status of the women in the society. Status means what? When we're discussing about the equality position. Equality by whom? By social, by economic, by political, by administrative, by cultural, by religious. Fine. So we have a numbers of the terms and conditions. Social reformers work to improve the status of the women by working against the social evils like sati, like infanticides, right? Why conditions of the women among the other things. That's we have a very good example of a 19th century social reformation. Next we can say social reformers thought that social changes could be inevitable by educating the women. So what is happening actually when we completely focusing on the women education? When we completely focusing on the women education. Fine. And bringing progressive of legislations. Social evils can be eradicated by raising what? Consequences and making people sensitive to injustice done to the women. Important changes. We have a social reformers, we have a implications, we have a evils. Now what about the changes? What are the important changes occurred in the society as far as women as concerned? Now the infusion of the Western ideas, when we completely merge the Western ideas, where in India when we asking about our rights in 19th century, but in the as per the need of the Western ideas, when we have a very good information about American Revolution 1778, where the women completely directly asking about the ideas and to let the emergence of the social reformer movements. Why? Because Western ideas, when they are working as the working as a fuel, when they are asking about their own rights, somehow they are the fusion of the emergence of the new ideas. And what are the new ideas? When we are asking about equality, when we are asking about emergence, when we are asking about social reformer movements. Fine. Now Changing status of women in modern India. What are the changing status? Changing status means when we are looking for the change. What are the changes? What we needed when we looking for our need? When we are looking for our aim, right? And what are the aim? The social aim, right? And the economic aim, the educational aim, right? Social is what? Social when we are looking for the need, sorry, the equality. We can say equality or equal status. Fine. And what about the economy? When we looking in the women empowerment on the equal pace or equal level, we can say the women empowerment, right? When we started to teach the specifically the women that to earning the money is not only the need. It is very important to teach the girls or the women in the society, specifically for 21st century, that to earning the money is not only the need, it is somehow making the women more stronger, right? So when we discuss about the empowerment, fine. What about the education? When we're discussing about education to all, why? Because education is the need, key factor. Women are building block of family, that the thread that ties up the whole family, right? And women build family, family builds home, home as a society, and the last society we can say that transforms. How you can transform the society? How we can transform the society? The nation, the state can only be developing when the status of all gender will improve, and the country cannot progress unless the condition of the women are rising, right? Let me explain how it is working actually. We are discussing about the changes. Changes in whom? The women condition. The women's condition. Right? So how we can improve the women condition? With the help of upliftment, right? And with the help of education, with the help of awareness, right? These are the factors. Fine. So what we said, that changes is only how the changes going to be start. How the changes, right? How the changes started is going to be start. We can say how. When you start to educate, education to whom? The family, right? And why it is important to work on the families? Because the blocks, we said, the tie-ups only happening just because for the women. So what is women is doing actually? She is not only educating the family, educating the family somehow, it is also playing a very vast, or we can say the prominent role by the women when he is completely teaching or educating the family, the primarily part of the society, right? And what is the society is doing? When the society is somehow educating the nation, right? So how we can uplift the women? We are uplifting the women with education, the awareness, the social equal status, and the participation in the political parties, right? right? The financial, we can say, upliftment to women, right? To teach them the final outcome, we can say, about the rights. And what are the rights are doing for us, for the women exactly? They are not only awareing as well as using the rights, and guiding us how they are important as a part of an Indian citizen. And what is the definition of the citizen? They are somehow the part of the nation, right? They are somehow the part of the nation. I hope I'm completely connected the points with each other. Your citizenship is completely wasted out, right? If you are not going to participate as the part of a citizen in the nation. Your citizenship is completely wasted out if you are not using your rights, the voting rights for the nation. If you are not liable to choose a good president, not good PM, not your MPs or MLAs on the approaching of the national level. Fine. Now, let's move ahead, everyone. Changings I will explain. Women in the Vedic period. During the Vedic age, we can say, during the Vedic age, 3000 years, we can say, 3000 years, we can say, ago, women were assigned the high place in the society in the Vedic age only. They shared somehow a complete role. They somehow shared the complete role, we can say, standing with their men folk and enjoyed a kind of a liberty that actually had social sanctions, societal sanctions. Shakti, we can say the feminine principle of the energy when we're discussing about the power. And where the power is existing, when we completely aware about whom, the status of what? The political status, the social status, the economic status, and the religious status in the society. Fine, everyone. Now, women in movement in India. So we are just going, not only discussing in the modern India, we are going to choose different movements. We're discussing about the modern Indian movement. Fine. So what we can write down on the priority? Okay, we can definitely write down about from the beginning of the 1757. We cannot forget about 1905. We cannot forget about 1919 Jallianwala Bagh massacre. We cannot forget about non-cooperation movement 1921. We cannot forget still 1931 civil disobedience movement. We cannot forget about 42, the Quit India movement. Fine. And still we cannot forget about the final struggle movement of 1947. 1947, the final freedom struggle movement. We cannot, these are somehow the prominent movements in India, specifically in the modern Indian section, where we are going to see the participation of the women on the high level. Why on the high level? Because from 1857, the first war of independence, where we saw the participation of each and every category. 1905, where we have a Swadeshi movement boycott, right? We have a 1919, we have a Jallianwala Bagh massacre, we have a government act as well. We have a non-cooperation movement 1921, where we are completely see the part of the participation of the women, where they are not guiding the youth, or they are not they still are not guiding the different people, but still they are participating completely. 1931, where they are completely participating in civil disobedience movement. 42, Quit India movement, that we cannot forget the participation of the women. how they are completely controlling the things. And 47, when India is completely finished the freedom struggling movement. So what is the last cause of it? When the growth in the autonomous women's organizations over the past 3 decades. And what are the organizations when we are discussing about? We are discussing about the awareness, the organizations regarding the rights, about the education. Fine. Increase the awareness of the women in the rights when we have a social reformation, 19th century. Right. Demand for special cells for the women police officers for investigation when we're looking for the safety. We also say that as not insecurity, sorry, it's a security. This is security. Fine. Changes in women's status, the equal status, the political voice, visibility, the economic, including non-traditional professions, right? More numbers of the girls in education, and the campaign about violence against women from the individual to the community level. Jagori as example. Jagori is basically the part when we are discussing about the awareness, when we want to awake the women for their own rights, awakening the women for their own organizations, awakening for the women for increasing for their own rights, demanding for the special security. Jagana or Jagori is basically the awareness or awakening campaign for the women specifically. When we're discussing about the women's status, the equal status, right? The professions, the non-traditional professions, it is very important to come out from the homes. Right, campaign about violence against women. We have a different violences against the women's. We have a numerous of the violences as well. So Jagori as an example, we can say the awakening, the enlightening the women in the society, and somehow we are awakening the women, not using the rights but specifically to proceeding the rights not only for the society, for herself, but as well as for the upcoming generations. Fine. Now you can see the map, everyone, on the screen. This is somehow the participation of the women I would like to ensure on the map. I hope my map is completely, yes, Aman. Now I would like to zoom the map first of all, and let me write down here just a minute. The participation of the women, we can say participation of the women, right? Where they participated actually. Okay, let me start from the northwest frontiers. Okay, now we have a very good example of a Muslim, Amritsar 1906, right? 1919, the you can say the Amritsar, I'm just mentioning the name if the map is not complete. Just a minute. Right, Amritsar, right? Lucknow we have. Okay, I think my map is completely visible. Fine. Right, Champaran we have in Bihar. Bengal, we have a partition of Bengal 1905. Champaran, we have a 1917, 1918, right? 1915 as well. Now, Sabarmati Dandi March, we have a 1931 or 1930, we can say. Surat, 1907. The impact of Bengal partition, Bombay, INC, right? We cannot forget about any Besant as well. Right? Okay, formation of the cabinet mission 1946. Right, Delhi 1946, again you can say the cabinet mission. Allahabad Swaraj Party formed 1922. Fine. So these are somehow the prominent part of the map you can see on the screen, everyone. They are somehow the part of the different leading roles where they are completely participating in it, and they are completely playing their role in a very fine manner. Now let's move ahead. Now we have a numerous of the acts and evils, we can say, right? Awareness of women, right? The rights. And what are the rights? The use of the rights and the we can say the forwarding rights for the society. And what is the outcome of it? When they completely want to aware themselves. Aware with what? With the non-violence. Hindu Marriage Act 1955, right? Hindu Marriage Act, okay. Hindu Marriage Act 1955 made monogamy compulsory, right? We have a very good example of a Hindu Succession Act 1956, given the property right to the women. And in the prelims perspective, I'm talking, the question is completely come out in 2021 prelims, when they are completely asking about the women rights, right? Fine. 1956, the property rights, we can say. Dowry Prohibition Act 1961, right? Now let's move ahead. The we can say the indecent representation of women prohibition 1986. The Equal Remuneration Act 1976 and the Maternity Benefits Act 1961. It is completely modified. It is completely modified now, and it is also completely modified now. 3 of the acts in present time. Fine. And what is modification? Hindu Marriage Act 1955 is completely modified. And what is modification in it? That we are completely women. It is completely depend on the women desire. They are not completely bounded to do the things as per the need of the Hindu marriages traditions. Now the Succession Act is what? The giving property right to the women. Now the women are completely equalization as on behalf of the men. If they are needed their own property right, then ask for their father and ask for their brothers as well. Dowry Prohibition Act 1961 completely not acceptable by the Indian women or the Indian society. Now let's move ahead, everyone. We are discussing about definitely the broadness of the subject. What we are looking here, the women impact, or we can say the participation as well. The participation. The social history, what is going on actually when we're looking for the equal participation for the women. We can say the equal status. Fine. Next we can say come out with the non-tradition acts. Sorry, not come out. Acceptance of non-tradition acts. Right? Now, religious history, if you are discussing the equal status to sitting as per the equivalent of the men. Cultural history, when we are discussing about the diversity. Fine. Administrative, when we are looking the we can say in the both the equal participation. The equal participation, or we can say giving the equal chance to whom? To the women. Right? Understand the UPSC trends of the UPSC. So what we can add here? Very prominent points we have. What we can add? The property right. changes in Hindu law code, sologamy, you cannot forget it. Right, and we have a 377 as, sorry, not 377, sologamy, we can bind up with sologamy. We have a non-violent sects, you know very well. Current affairs and history, I already mentioned there. PYQs, when the question is directly asked on the property right, the status of the women in Vedic and the later Vedic phases. So in the PYQ session you can understand the things, and the directly question will come out on the Quit India movement and the specifically the movements happening in modern India and when they are looking for the participation for the women, and last but not the least, the social reformations, the prohibition against the evils of the women, right? So we cannot forget about it. Now, okay, approaches. What about the approaches? What type of approaches we are choosing here? Begin by referring to women participation in the independence movement and the continuity in the post-independence women. Post-independence women, that I already mentioning you everyone, right? That in the 21st century, if I am discussing about the equal role participation, equal role of participation of women in political parties, right? Women participation, and women participation, where we are ensuring the participation? We are ensuring the participation in the society, in the political, we can say the political parties as well, and the economic, where we are completely guiding the women that the acceptance of the non-traditional work, that they had to come out from the home, from the villages, from the urban areas, and they have to indulge themselves by earning. And earning, that earlier I told you, to earning the money is not only uplifted the women morally, but somehow they are completely uplifting the women socially and the financially taking the benefits. Now, independence movement. We have a different independence movement. So we have a first war of independence 1857. We have a Swadeshi movement or Bengal partition in 1905. We have a 1921 non-cooperation movement. We have a 1942 Quit India movement. We have a, again 1947 about discussing about the freedom struggle movement. Fine. Now, highlighting the role of the women. How you can highlighting the women, role of the women in the social, in the society? How can we highlighting the women, the role of the women, we can say. The role of the women, we can say socially, when we're discussing about the equal social status, equal social status. Politically, when we are discussing about the on rights, and what about the on rights? We're discussing about the voting rights. The desiring voting rights doesn't mean that you are forcing the women to vote here and there, and later on the things are going to be completely vanished out. Voting rights means when the women are completely desirable to vote the person according to herself, right? Environmental movement, we cannot forget about Chipko movement, right? Now, conclude with the need of the more reforms in the society. More reforms, when I'm discussing about whom? The Hindu law code, what I'm discussing about here as well, about the equal property right. Just a minute. Equal property right, right? The need, the social, the political, the economic, the religious, cultural, administrative need. right? Fulfilling the equal status, right? Now, you can see the screen, everyone. India's independence movement witnessed enormous participation for the women community due to the Gandhian leadership. Due to the Gandhian leadership. Due to the Gandhian leadership. Right? And social reforms aimed at ending the subjugation in the society. When what we're discussing about? When we're discussing about the suppression. When we're discussing about the suppression of the women's right. Suppression of the women's right. Right. Even after independent, women from various strata of society, the different categories we can say, continue to voice their opinions and discontents through social, when we're discussing about the social status, social equal status, right? Environmental and the political. Environmental doesn't mean that the men are completely dominated to discussing on the environmental issues. No, women are still somehow become compatible to discuss about environmental issues. Fine. The political grassroots of the movements, right? Political grassroots movement, where we are going to aware the women about their own rights, about their own equality, the awarening, the enlightenment. Fine. Now, what about the body? When we're discussing about the mid-body, the political movement. Okay. Okay, political movements. Indian Constitution guaranteed to geopolitical equality to women by universal adult franchise under Article 326. Number 1. When we're discussing about political movements means when the equal political status. Fine. Now, however, de facto, women were subordinate in politics, right? When we're discussing the men and the women, right, equally participated, right? Equality between the participation. Fine. Women through their participation in politics movements like anti-price rise movement 1975, JP movement and other tribal and other, we can say the peasant movement and the peasant movement. You can add here the peasant movement. In the tribal area, we cannot forget the name of the Naga tribes. In the peasant movement, you cannot forget about 1935-1936. Andhra Pradesh and MP movement, where huge movement participation only for the women, where the huge women participation enhancing. Why it is enhancing? Because of the land revenue, high taxation. Fine. Peasant movement tried to achieve an equal footing in the modern time. Peasant movement somehow tried to achieve an equal footing in the modern India, where we are discussing about whom? When we are discussing about the equal or the less taxation and get out of the land acquisition, which is completely captured by the British Crown, British Governor General, British people. Fine. Now, social movements. What about the social movements? Right, social movements, when we're discussing about the breakdown the social strata, and somehow when we're discussing about the social come out from the social format, the rigid social format, that I'm already giving the example of a Vedic era and the post-Vedic era. Fine. Conflicts and hierarchy. What are the conflicts? When the male dominancy people are not going to giving the equal rights to the women. Fine. So this is the conflicts. Why the conflicts are uprising? when the social strata completely not break down or not accepted by the upper class or hierarchy. We can say about the hierarchy means what? Hierarchy, when we started to differentiate the people, that you are the women, it's your work, and you are a man, so it's your work. Like society in its history, a response from the women. Number two, we can say this: the women started struggles against gender discrimination. Gender discrimination, when we started to decide everything as per the need or as per the demand of the gender equalities. Gender discrimination, sorry. Domestic violence, right? And alcoholism, rapes, and patriarchy social attitudes. Patriarchy, where we are showing the male dominancy, where the permission is always needed to do anything by the women. Organization like Saheli, right? Organization like, I would like to add here the Margareta Sisters, the Self-Employed Women Association Seva, and the Naga Mother Association. Naga Mother Association, there as the tribal areas. Women, sorry, tribal areas women, what they are doing, they are completely awareing the women who are belonging from the tribal areas. And Nagas are almost already a tribal name, tribal community name. Been at the forefront of these movements. Fine. Now, environmental movement. We discussed about the political movement. We discussed about the social movement. We're discussing about the economic movement. Now, this is the time to discuss about the environmental movement, right? Environmental movements, environmental protest movement in India could not have succeeded without the much needed support of the women activities. Women-led environmental movement like Chipko, Narmada Bachao Andolan, Narmada Bachao Andolan, the savior of the river, savior of the river, right? Now, Danya, etc. not only protected local ecological balance, rights and environmental, but also inspired environmental movement in other parts of the world as well, right? As a result of which women empowerment means what? When we started to giving the equal rights to the women in the social, in the economic, in the political, in the culture or in the administrative, and when we completely break down the social strata, which is completely not accepted by the women in the society, and the participation are now regarded indispensable for the sustainable development, right? Sustainable development means what? We have almost 17 goals, and we are just marked to achieve the 17 goals till 2030. Fine. In sustainable development, where we are looking for the gender gap index with the gender equality, goal number 4, which is existing in social development, and it is a very worst condition of India as per the knowledge of the sustainable development goal that we are going to achieve till 2030, that we are getting 141 position in 146 countries, where in the gender gap index, we can say the gender disability, or we can say the gender gap index. Right, and this is the 4th goal, sustainable development goals, right, between 17 goals. So you can at least get the idea of it, that how is it possible to compensate everything in a very short manner, while if you are not going to provide the equal right to the women, right, equal right to the women, now regarded indispensable for the sustainable development goals, to achieving the sustainable development goals. Now, what about the conclusion? Role of women in transforming the social, economic and political landscape of India. The social, when we're looking for the social equality. Economic, when we really want the women completely break down the social strata. sorry, the social strata, right? And the political landscape, when we're looking for the political movements, we have a Saheli movement, right? We have a rights movement, right? We have a next Chipko movements as well. These movements erupted to ensure constitutionally guaranteed rights for the women. Despite their overwhelming contribution, women still lack adequate political representation and the social empowerment. Social empowerment, when we are looking to giving the social, the economic, the political, and the administrative, cultural, and the religious equal rights. Looking for the equal rights. Equal rights means the equal status, right? The equal participation. Our society remains in want to more such movement that assert equality, demanding the rights and generate a democratic dialogue for a change. And democratic for whom? For everyone, for the people, whom the people, of the people, where the equal participation for the women is completely existing, or we can say completely giving to the women as well. Fine. And democratic rights, where we are looking for the not for only equal rights but demanding rights for the property rights, for the other rights as well. Fine. Now, okay, so I think this is the next question, everyone, you can see on the screen as well. Let me show you the question, everyone. Okay, this is the question for the next paintings we are going to discuss now. We are just discussing about the paintings, everyone. Okay everyone, so this is a break for a 2 or 3 minutes. Now we are just going to back on the same session again. I hope my voice is completely audible and visible everyone. Not voice is visible, my screen is visible everyone. I am speaking from last I think 6 or 6 or 7 5 or 6 hours, right? So it's difficult to continue everything consistently. Okay, so what we are going to discuss about, let me show you the question first of all. This is the question. So now for next answer writing, we are just going to choose the question everyone on the same basis. It is all about the examine and the significance of the prehistoric paintings, right? The prehistoric paintings. Right, and what is the question is they are asking of you exactly? Examine the significance of prehistoric painting found in India. Trace the changes. We are discussing about the changes occurred in the painting style during this period, right? So we are just going to discussing about the changes. What are the changes is happening? See, painting is all about the transition of time to time. We can transit the things as per the need and as per the time. And what are the definition of the paintings? When you completely using your techniques, when you completely using your ideas for the representation of anything in front of the public, maybe the representation for the educational perspectives or for the social perspectives, right? Now, so we are going to examine what we are going to examine the significances, the paintings found in the Indian traces, the changes occurred in the painting style during the period. Fine. Now, so this is the question everyone. So let me start from the beginning that I'm okay. From the where the painting is exactly started, it is a very important to discuss, right? The ancient history, sources of history, we have a numerous of the sources. If I'll start to count down, we have a numerous of the sources. We have a literature sources, we have archaeological sources, we have a inscription sources, we have excavations, we have a tools, we have a weapons, we have a bones, we have a numbers of the sources. Some sources that we specifically found from the excavation, some of the sources that we found from the written documents, some of the sources that we have but still we cannot decipher, still हम उसे अभी तक पढ़ नहीं पाए हैं. Fine. Okay, so ancient history sources, history is basically what? History is basically giving the knowledge of the past. And how you can get the knowledge of the past? When you completely indulging yourself in written evidences available. And prehistoric phase, painting is somehow the part of the prehistoric phase. Painting is somehow the part of a prehistoric phases, and no written evidences. So if you don't have any no written evidences, so how can you how can you get the knowledge of it? With the help of the paintings, with the help of art or architecture, we can say as well, with the help of the seals, right? And the things specifically found from the excavations. Found from the excavations, right? Now, and what about the proto-history? When we divide history into segments, the prehistory and the proto-history. Proto-history, basically the written evidence is available but could not be deciphered. For example, we have a very good example of the Harappan seals. We have a very good examples of the Harappan seals, everyone, right? Literature is what, right? Sources, literature, we have a very good example of a Rig Veda, we have a very good example of a foreign literature sources, we have a Megasthenes Indica as well, right? We have a Kalidas literature, we have a Meghdut, we have a we can say numbers of the literature, Meghdut and Ritu Sahar we have, right? And Malvika Agnimitram as well. Archaeological evidences, the sum of the archaeological evidences that we find from the excavations. Inscriptions, when we're discussing numbers of the languages, We cannot forget about the Ashokan Brahmani script. We cannot forget about the inscriptions that we found in the different languages. We have Aramaic, we have a Greek, we have a Pali, we have Prakritic languages as well. And what about the literature? When we also consolidated in different parts, right? We have a Indian, we have a foreign, we have a religious as well. In literature, we have a foreign accounts, so we cannot specifically, we can definitely take the name of a Indica by Megasthenes. Now we have a Indian, we cannot, we specifically cannot ignore Charang Sahita. We have a religious literature. We have a Rigveda, Samaveda, Atharvaveda, and Yajurveda, and Brahmans, Arnakyas, and Upanishads, right? Where we are showing the principles, the correlation between the human beings and between the Shishya and the Guru relationships in the Upanishads, right? Okay, coins. Coins, we can say somehow a very specific, and we can say the very prominent, providing a very prominent knowledge about any of the kingdom, any of the emperor, any of the king's ideology, the personalities. For example, I would like to mention here a very prominent and very good example of a Samudragupta, where he is showing himself while using the veena on the coins, right? Gowns of the foreigners. I already taking the names of the Megasthenes, and we have a numerous in the Mughal era, in the medieval phase, the Muslim era, and in the post pre-modern era, we have a numbers of the foreign accounts where the different foreigners, specifically we have a Ibn Battutas, we have a Abu Fazal, we have a different of the foreign travelers, they came India. We have a Hume Sang, we have a Fahayan. They are completely referring in, not only referring the Indian religious traditions, the society, the economy, the polity, the administration, and the nature of the king and the duties of the king. And we cannot forget as well as the Megasthenes Indica, where he completely telling the whole structure of the modern empire, and modern empire somehow we can say in the sources of the Indian history, playing a very crucial role, the beginning of the origination of the empires, right? Now, we are just discussing about the paintings. So why we are needy of the paintings? It is a very important to discuss about the paintings, that why we are looking for the paintings, right? Homo sapiens sapiens, if I am discussing about here, Homo sapiens sapiens somehow considered as the modern human being, right? The modern human beings. And Australopithecus, when they have a less knowledge of anything. Homo habilis, they have a we can say the specific knowledge of anything. So this is completely diverted, right? Let me define the prehistoric paintings, right? This is the question, and this is the prehistoric paintings. You can see on the screen, everyone. What are the prehistoric paintings? First of all, we have to know first of all what are the prehistoric paintings. See, largest phase of the human history, prehistoric phase. When we're discussing about history, I hope my screen is visible. Yes. Right, history. We have a proto-history and we have a prehistory. Right, we are discussing about prehistory. First of all, it is the largest phase of a history, right? Largest phase of a human history. And human history, like we, the part of the human, we are not the exactly looking the human beings, that I already showing you the part of Australopithecus, the Homo habilis, Homo erectus, Homo sapiens, then Homo sapiens sapiens. During this period, the earth was still taking shapes and humans were evolving biologically, right? Primitives and the present form, right? Let me show you the image of it. Yes, I'm discussing about this image, everyone. I hope you are completely agree with me that this is the human modern, this is the modern human being. While traveling till the modern human being, we have such a very long phase, and we taking so much time, we can say, that we started to traveling from Australopithecus, we shifted in Homo habilis, we shifted then Homo erectus, then Neanderthals, then Homo sapiens sapien. Presently, in the scientific language, we can call the human being as a Homo sapiens sapien, the scientific modern name. Let's get back on the same slide. The period is also called Stone Age, right? Since the use of the Stone Age was prominent, where we are looking for the importance, right? Stone Age, why we are going to use the word Stone Age? Because we don't have any written evidences available there, and no evidences for writing. We get an insight about early humans life, that we have a very good example that I'm already showing you about Australopithecus, Homo erectus, Homo sapiens, Homo sapiens sapiens, right? Through the various artifacts made by them, such as stone bone tools, right? Stone and bone tools, and pottery as well, right? You can see on the screen, everyone. This is the prehistoric paintings of India, and in the prehistoric age of India, in which session we are going to discuss about the paintings and the changes occurrence and the changes, right? Now, prehistoric age of India: Paleolithic or the Old Stone Age, Mesolithic, right? This is the oldest Stone Age, we can see. This is the mid phase. This is the Neolithic, New Stone Age. We can see the New Stone Age, right? This is already mentioning there. What is the Paleolithic Stone Age? When the earliest human being, we can say the Australopithecus, when they are completely living, or they are completely dependent on the stone tools, right? They are nomads as well. They don't have any settled life. Don't have any key idea, we can say, about agriculture. Right? Now, fine. What about the Mesolithic, the middle phase ages, we can say? When they are little bit, what they are doing, they are still looking for the settled life, not complete the settled life, right? Plus doing some agriculture. We have also evidences of animal husbandry. Fine. But when we are discussing about the nomad age phases, right? The Neolithic, New Stone Age, this is completely dependent on the agriculture and the pet animals, right? They are completely living the settled life as well. On the another way, the Neolithic age is also known as the revolution in the agriculture. Revolution, we can say, and just a minute, we can say the revolution in the agriculture. Just a minute. Revolution in the agriculture. Fine, everyone. So these are somehow, we can say, about the prominence of the painting, right? Paleolithic age, where the people are completely dependent on the painting, where we are looking for the caves painting, right? Mesolithic phase, where the caves paintings and household paintings, and the Neolithic phase, where they are completely shifted in the caves plus household paintings. Fine. Now, history of art, right? So history of art, we can say, what is the definition of the art if we are looking the prehistoric paintings specifically, and the diversion and the we can say that the bifurcation as per the need or as per the space of time. Fine. What is art when we characterize? I'm not going in the so much detail because I'm just elaborating the definition of the paintings and what is the need of the painting on the phases of the prehistoric time. Because prehistoric time, basically the human beings, the earliest, the primitive human beings, we can say the australopithecus, the homo habilis, the homo erectus, the homo sapiens, the homo sapiens sapiens, they don't have any idea specifically about the paintings, about the art. So what is the right way of representation? The way they are representing in front of the public, we can say, with the visual arts, with the paintings, with the sculptures and the architectures, and how the visual arts is specifically coming out with the ideas, with the techniques, and with the formation of the representation, when they have a very good knowledge about the colors, when they have a very good knowledge about the sculptures. You can see the image on the screen, everyone. This is the Lord Shiva sculpture, we can say statue as well. This sculpture, this statue is completely found out in the Gupta's era, and this is somehow a very prominent sculpture. We can see the statue, not sculpture. This is somehow a very important statue specifically for the Hindu religious people who are completely devotee, showing the devotion to Lord Shiva. And somehow you can see the image and you can also imagine the representation and the visual art and techniques of the and representation of the ideas in the same statue which is showing on the screen, everyone. Fine. Okay, so this is somehow the performing of arts where you can highlight your ideas, your opinions, everyone. So this is all about the today's session, everyone. From tomorrow onwards, I will continue the session with the same answer writing practice. So you can join me tomorrow at 3 p.m. sharp. Tomorrow will be 15th of August. We are just going to celebrating moreover 75 years of the independence, Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. So don't forget to join, everyone. We are going to celebrate Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav at sharp 3 p.m. and we're just discussing some of the important we can say the answer writings which are completely important as per your mains perspective. And somehow these answer writings are not limited as per the need, that we are just limited till the mains perspective. Definitely, if you are acquiring a good knowledge with the answer writing, the elaboration of everything that we are doing actually here, so definitely the things are completely helpful in the prelims perspective. The students, those are appearing for 2022 as well in the mains writing, or the students who are appearing for 2023 in the prelims, वो prelims वाला जो भी पार्ट है आपका, ठीक है. So don't forget to join me tomorrow, everyone. So don't forget to join me, everyone, at sharp tomorrow at 3 p.m. sharp. Thank you so much for joining me.